Uh-oh.
Okay. So good evening, Somers. Welcome to the Somers Town Board work session, starting here at 7 o'clock, Thursday, February 3rd, 2022. If everybody can please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
To the republic,
and to the
republic
which stands
one nation,
under God,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
liberty,
liberty,
and
and justice.
justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. At this time, I'd like to open it up for public comment. And if anybody has a public comment out there, let's please keep it to about 3 minutes or so.
Second.
I make a motion, we open public comment.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody out there?
Well,
Paul, you got anything?
No, nothing on my side here.
Okay. I
okay.
think most of the rest of the people are on here for environmental stuff and other things.
Supervisor Serrano,
Yes.
can you just announce the things we discussed at our last meeting about not, no cell phone, no email?
Yes. So now we've actually taken, we're not going to be having our cell phone service in the meetings here for taking for public comments. We would like people to use the original ways of methods for everything else. So if we can, is that what you want to talk about, Patty?
Yes, that they can call in through one of the Zoom numbers. They can
Yep.
message through our YouTube page, or they can join the meeting with the links that are provided.
Okay, so yeah, so you can see if everybody's at the screen there, please, that for the public section, you could see the number that is there on the screen. There's several numbers that you can use. And then, yeah, that's all for that.
And I'm just going to ask everybody, since we have a lot of people on this call, if you're not actively participating, please mute your phones or mute your devices.
Yeah. That'd be great. So I don't think we have any public comment, right? So motion to close public comment.
So move.
Second.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 So moved. So I'd like to start off the evening here with an updated COVID-19 update. So these numbers were as of February 1st, 2022. There's a total number of cases here in Somers of 180. And there's new cases that we have is 11. So we've come down tremendously since the holiday peak. I think at one time we were into the thousands with total cases, and we've come down to 180. So that's something to be something to be excited about. But we still have some ways to go. But that's good news, and we're seeing everything move in the right direction. What I'd like to start now here is wireless telecommunications public workshop, and we have Susan Rabel from Cityscape Consultants on the line with us here. So Susan, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us this evening, and I'd like to get the update.
Just real quick, Rob, actually, I think that was yesterday. Today, we're down to 167.
167. Okay, I had this from this afternoon. So
we're even lower than 80. And I think today, if I read the number correctly, only 6 new cases. So we're down to sort of the pre-peak numbers, which are always good.
That's great. So Susan, if you'd like to start, that'd be great.
Sure. Thank you very much for having me this evening. I'm going to start by sharing my screen. And it's nice to meet you, by the way. Welcome to Somers. I look forward to meeting you in person someday.
Thank you.
Okay. So I've got a little bit of a technical difficulty here. Give me
We
just
can
a
see it.
second. Okay, great. That's good to know. So I wanted to start first discussing briefly what this project is all about. This is a wireless telecommunication study being done in the northern region of Westchester County, and it includes 7 communities, and the wireless communication piece is specific to the handset devices that people use for making telephone calls and the devices that are related to those. It could be watches that interconnect, it could be tablets that connect using that subscription service. And this is not a broadband study. There were a number of comments that we received from the community through the poll talking about broadband, but this is wireless telecommunications and it does not include the broadband study. So this is our third of 3 meetings that we had planned to conduct. The first meeting was an introduction to wireless telecommunication. The second was to look at your inventory and discuss the gap analysis. And now this meeting is to talk a little bit more about your gap analysis, your responses to the poll that we launched, and to talk a little bit about what you can maybe do with your zoning that addresses the gaps. So first of all, the poll that was conducted took place on September 23rd, and it ran just over 1 month. We closed the poll on the 25th. There were 25 questions in the wireless infrastructure poll, and you had 671 participants, which was a great number, by the way. Congratulations on the community involvement. That was awesome.
Oh, thank you.
The questions were intended to gather information specifically about people's experience with their wireless service. It was not to promote a certain type of service, a certain provider, any types of certain infrastructure. Some of the feedback that we got from the poll is that maybe we were trying to get certain answers, but we were not intentionally trying to do anything like that. We were really trying to hear from the community what they do like, what they don't like, what they would support in the future in terms of wireless communications. So I'm going to stop sharing this particular screen for a moment. I'm going to share the response screen. Well, hold on. That's what happened. When I opened up that screen, I lost my other one. Excuse me just a moment while I open up this other screen. Well, for some reason, I'm not able to share my screen. Let's try this a different way.
Hey, Susan, you can try by closing the windows of whatever you're trying to share. Close everything completely and then go back in to screen share.
Okay.
Reopen it.
And try and open it again. All right.
You always
I'm
like that
sorry.
voice from above, giving you guidance.
Thank you. I'm
Oh,
sorry
very
for the
on call.
delay. All right, let's try this again. There we go. Thank you. All right, wonderful. Okay, so as I mentioned, you had 671 responses or respondents on the survey. The first question we asked was to of the people who were responding was whether they were responding on behalf of themselves or on behalf of their household. And you had a pretty even split, 50.9 answering on behalf of themselves, 49.1 answering on behalf of their household. And we wanted to know if who of the respondents, did they live and work in the town? Did they live but work outside of town? And you had 60% basically that indicate that they live and work in the town year round. And
Wow.
then 35% live in the
Is that
town.
a pretty
and
high
work
number? I'm
outside
just
of town.
curious.
Yes, it is.
I mean, that seems like a high percentage of people who work and live in town all the time. That's wow.
Of the ones that were responding. Now, it could be that you had more people working in town right now because of the pandemic and less people are commuting.
Good point. Good point.
But yes, I did think that was kind of a high number. And with regards to how they use their service and what they rely on their handset for, they could check all that apply. And your largest number was indicating that they use their phones for personal recreation, leisure purposes, but closely behind that, personal use and employment, along with educational learning and employment purposes. We asked some qualifying questions with regards to specifically for them to identify where they work, where they live. And I'll let you go through that on your own because there was a variety of answers. We wanted to know who the service provider is that they subscribe to. And you had a very large percentage of those who responded subscribing to the Verizon network, 60.3%, followed by AT&T and then T-Mobile and Sprint. We wanted to know how many wireless devices people have in their household, meaning if you had more than one person in your household, do you each have a wireless device? And maybe you have more than one per person. And the average ended up being right under 7. So 7 is the average number of devices per household that we calculated.
Wow. So somebody's got 20 wireless. I want to see that bill. 20 wireless devices in their house?
Right. Well, and there's more too. Well, you figure if there's a, we're a family of 7, and when everybody's in the house, now they don't all live at home anymore, but you could easily have people with multiple family members or extended family members, and they use their handset and it's connected to their watch or it's connected to their iPad or tablet, and they're trying to use it for, their purposes. So yes, the average was just under 7. With regards to the number of participants who were using a booster, you have 39.1%, which I thought was a pretty high number. I didn't realize how many people were using boosters to amplify their signal where they live. We then asked some qualifying questions with regards to the quality of the coverage. And we did that based on number of bars of service. So 5 bars represents an excellent service, 3 acceptable, 1 poor, green, inconsistent, and then the other is not applicable. And overall, your majority of residents who answered this indicated that they had excellent or acceptable service. So combined 44.4 to and add 11.6, you're over 50%.
But wouldn't, Susan, wouldn't that also, I mean, that's a fair number of people who say it's acceptable or not so good if you read it the other way. Wouldn't that be why they have boosters?
Yes, I would think so. Yes. It could be that they have a good service.
I don't know many places in town that have excellent service.
Right. Well, you only had 11.6 identifying excellent service. And then 3 bars, which is considered indoor service. So indoor, and they were satisfied with it. And it could be that they had boosters. We could have asked some other qualifying questions, but we didn't think to do that at the very beginning.
Right.
And with regards to where people work, you had a large percentage, 32.6% saying not applicable. Again, I think it could be that perhaps there's a retiree population that was responding to the poll that may not be working right now. It could be that through the pandemic, you have people that are not working at all, or just people are not working. So you had, again, 13.7% indicate that they had excellent, and 30% in the acceptable range. When they travel around town, again, your numbers between excellent and acceptable were pretty good. Now, granted, you do have almost 29% that has it as inconsistent, and almost 17% saying it's poor. Of those responding, we wanted to know if they would use their phone more and rely on their device more if the service was better. And you had 56.3% agree entirely with that. And with regards to, is the quality of service important, a very large majority, 88.7%, entirely agreed with that statement. So from this, we gather that quality amongst those who were polled, the quality of service is important to them. They would use their device more if the service was better, and that you have pretty good experiences of connectivity for those who participated in the poll, where they live, where they work, and in the area that they travel. Now, that's not to say that it couldn't be better. That was their responses. So now we wanted to talk or gather information with regards to aesthetics and the location of the infrastructure and what people support and what they think about the infrastructure. So to qualify, we started out asking what was most important to them: excellent connectivity, aesthetics, good connectivity with minimal impact, and we offered also a willingness to tolerate worse service with less infrastructure. And the majority, by almost 60%, was that they prefer what was most important to them was excellent connectivity, followed by good connectivity with minimal visual impact at 36.4%. For future towers, we wanted to know, were people willing to support a taller facility so that you could maximize co-location on those infrastructures, but you would see the top of it more because it would have to be taller? Or did they want to see shorter facilities, but understanding that co-location could possibly be limited, and then you would have to have more of them? And 52% identified that they would support a taller facility with more co-location. 25.6% said shorter, potentially more. And then you had almost a quarter, 22.2%, that had no preference. And looking at the options for non-concealed facilities, the monopole was definitely the one that people preferred most at 67.5%. Though you did have 18% indicate that they didn't like any of these, the monopole, the lattice, or the guy. And I speculate that's probably because they don't want to see a non-concealed facility. Because when you look down at the concealed preference, you had 72% saying that they like the flagpole, 57% the monopole, and only 2.9% saying they didn't like any of the above. So there seems to be definitely a preference of a concealed tower versus a non-concealed tower. And if it's going to be non-concealed, the monopole, and if it could be concealed, the flagpole and the monopine were the preferred types. So when an antenna attaches onto an existing structure, it's called a base station. And the rooftop concealed base station was the preferable type by a 76.7% response favorable for that type. And for future small wireless facilities, 87.5% want them concealed. And those numbers are pretty consistent throughout the study area, not just in Somers. We then wanted to know, were people more supportive of having more base stations or more towers? And you did have a number one choice of base stations as a priority at 332 versus 306 for towers. And as a second choice, base stations again came out on top marginally, 299 to 293. So it was almost split as a second choice. We wanted to next know where people were going to support future facilities and would they support them on public or quasi-public properties. You had 60.7% respond that they would support a tower or a base station anywhere in the town, followed by 40.8% saying that they really only wanted a base station or an attachment onto an existing structure. And then 23% indicated somewhere other than their own neighborhood.
Yeah, I know. I'm surprised that's that low.
Usually when you have an application for one of these, everybody comes out who's near it,
Yeah. I think the top one, anywhere in town, if they were to build it in any of those 396 people's neighbor's yard, we'd see more down at the bottom one.
So one thing we didn't ask, Susan, I mean, typically people worry about, there's a health component to this.
Right. So I'll get to that in just a moment. Let me just touch base on this last question. With regards to support on whether to use public property, was there support? And if there was support, was it to generate revenue? Was it to control the aesthetics and maintenance of the facility? Or was it both? And so you all had only 7.2 identify neither, meaning that they did not support the use of these types of properties. You had your largest vote was almost 60%, indicating that they support both the revenue and the sense of controlling the aesthetics and maintenance. And then we had gave the opportunity where they needed to identify their email address so that we could verify that it was a valid response. And then they could add their address if they wanted to. And then you had 164 responses. And the 164 responses were really varied. You did have a good number of responses saying that the infrastructure was desperately needed from emergency purposes, that more and more people are relying on their wireless handsets, and so they need to be able to have a robust system. You did have a number of people also, though, like you were saying, Anthony, that were concerned about the health concerns. And
Susan, can you just,
yes.
Can you scroll up a little bit? I don't want to leave people's addresses up there.
Oh,
on the
sorry.
top
Yes.
page.
Let's see. Well, it won't.
Okay.
It's not letting me, but that's okay. I can actually stop sharing the screen. There we go. I don't have to share anymore. I can just see you all now. So with regards to the health effect, the federal government manages and is in complete control of the health effects. You're not allowed to regulate or have the appearance of regulating the health effects.
That's right.
This is being challenged in court, but until a decision is made, you have to make sure that you are not giving the appearance of regulating. A number of people commented that they wanted to keep 5G out. That's impossible. Just like you have to understand that 5G is the next generation of wireless technology. And after 5G will be 6G and 7G and 8G. And they started with first generation wireless. They went to second, third. They're now at fourth. And all of the service providers have eliminated and made obsolete first, second, and third generation. In fact, if you have a phone, you probably got notice in the last 18 months that if you didn't upgrade your phone, it wasn't going to work probably by the end of 2022, because the platform for 3G and lower was going away. So you had to have at least a 4G phone. So 5G is the next generation for faster download and upload speeds. And you can't stop it. You can't zone it out. It's just part of the wireless evolution. You did have one person comment that they didn't think the study should be paid for by the citizens. And this study is being paid for by the county. I'm not sure where they're getting the money, but none of the townships or the village of Mount Kisco are contributing dollars for the studies being paid for by the county to support a regional approach to wireless. So those were some of the comments that I wanted to address that came up. Now I want to go back to the presentation. I have a couple more slides that I'd like to share with you. And I apologize, this hasn't happened before. When I've shut down one presentation, I haven't lost my other one, but I lost this one again. So apologize, I have to pull it back up. All right.
Yeah, some of the remarks here were interesting compared to the larger area, the study area.
Yes.
I mean, I was surprised to see that, we have a 56% excellent or acceptable rate, while the larger study area is only 45.
Yeah, so this is a summary of the gap analysis and the poll response and some key points on the zoning. So just a reminder, this is the gap analysis map that we gave. It's a 10-year projection of where we anticipate future sites needing to go in order to have a robust network throughout your town. Areas that have no coloration at all are your most severe gaps. Areas where you have red are also going to have gaps because the capacity in those areas is limited given the number of sites that you have in that geographic area compared to the people that reside or work or travel through that area. And so you may have these sites here providing decent coverage, but as more and more people use their devices and we transition to 5G, the capacity of that network to accommodate the number of people, the number of subscribers using their handsets or their tablets or their wireless devices simultaneously will cause this area to shrink, which is why it becomes red. So those are your target areas. Wherever you see red and no coloration and orange, those are the areas that you should probably concentrate on looking how to fill those areas in the future to get a more robust network. So in looking at the poll results, you were pretty consistent with regards to the larger study area. You did have a fewer people indicating that they use their phone for personal recreation and leisure. And you did have more people indicating that they had excellent or acceptable service. And I think one of the reasons for that is twofold. One, you have a larger populated township and a more commercialized township than, say, Pound Ridge. And so you have more sites in your community than a township or town like Pound Ridge. And so by virtue of having more sites per your geographic area, you have more service coverage. I think that might be one of the reasons why you have people indicating that their service is pretty good where they live and work.
I would have
travel.
thought Bedford, though, would have been pretty well covered. How did that turn out?
We're still working on Bedford. They had us pause their study
Okay, so that's not
temporarily,
in here. Okay,
and we're actually resuming that in a week and a half.
okay. So the larger
Now-
study doesn't include Bedford yet.
Well, it does, but it's an incomplete process. They have not launched their poll, and they have not had their second presentation yet.
Interesting, okay.
They were involved in a rezoning, and they wanted to focus on that and not the master plan at that time. So in looking at your zoning compared to your gap analysis and the responses, there were a few points that I wanted to bring to your attention. And the first is that your ordinance does promote co-location. Your ordinance does promote concealment of wireless facilities. And you do have that through a siting preference, which I think is very well done and builds expectation about what you want your future sites to look like. I do have a concern, though, that with the recent changes in the federal code of regulation, that you may have some barriers of entry that you have created through your zoning that I think you need to look at. And you have some inconsistencies with your definitions and how you regulate compared to what the Code of Federal Regulation now provides. I'm going to stop sharing this one and go back to this
How recent are those
presentation.
federal regulations?
This is
Susan?
the ones that I'm referencing are effective July 12th, 2021. So basically 7-8 months is the most recent version.
Okay, so
And the item that concerns me the most is that the radio ordinance is structured right now. You require a special permit for any modification to any existing wireless or attached facility. So not only do you require a special permit for a new tower, but for a modification to existing infrastructure on an existing tower and for new co-locations. And the Code of Federal Regulation specifically says that a state or local government may not deny and shall approve any eligible facility request for a modification of an eligible support structure that does not substantially change the physical dimensions of such structure. So if you have an existing tower and they've been approved by you previously, you have to approve, and you cannot deny a co-location or a modification on that tower unless they exceed the definition of substantial change. And basically that's saying that they're not increasing the height or the ground space. And I mean, I haven't seen a co-location in 2 years exceed the definition of substantial change. So that's one thing that I think you probably need to look at, because not only does it state that, but their timeline for giving an approval for a scenario like this is 60 days. And so I don't know that you can do a special permit from date of submittal to date of approval in 60 days. So that's sort of a red flag. The other thing that I want you to be specifically aware of is that a state or local government cannot require documentation intended to illustrate the need for a wireless facility or to justify the business decision to modify a facility. I believe that you require propagation maps or a drive test or a link document, a link budget for co-locations and modifications, and that's not allowed anymore through the federal regulation.
what about uninterrupted power? I mean, this is one of the things we talk about with all these applicants here.
You
Well,
can
we haven't
require
really
that
asked them. Could they-
you can require that they provide a backup generator.
at a local level, we can make that requirement.
You can put that in the ordinance that they provide a backup generator. Mhm.
Okay.
And then just a few other areas that I want to point out is that your current ordinance does not allow wireless or attached facilities along your scenic roadways or parcels adjoining a scenic roadway unless it's not visible from that scenic roadway. And I just want to point out that chances are, I mean, I understand what you're trying to do there without a doubt, and I support trying to maintain those beautiful vistas and rolling hills that you have throughout the community. But if the residents have a concern about, and if you and your emergency management team have concerns about people not having a robust network while they travel, then I think you might need to revisit this because it could be preventing facilities to go in areas where you need them to go. You also have an 80,000 square foot minimum lot size and a setback of 500 feet from a dwelling unit plus the 1.5 times the height of the facility. And I think that might be a little extreme to meet in areas where you have higher density residential, where lot sizes are smaller, and where they need to have more infrastructure to address capacity.
Okay.
And then the last thing that I wanted to bring to your attention is with regards to your special use permit process, section 170-129.6A, where you list that a wireless facility or an attached wireless facility shall be permitted in the following zones by special permit only. And the zones that you list are not very comprehensive of all the zones that you have in the community. And I understand why you're doing that because you're trying to keep them out of your low impact location. But if you have a large number of your population that's working from home, needing the infrastructure to participate in educational activities, and they need access at their residence in place of where they live, and they're in low impact areas and you're not allowing them in low impact areas, then that may also be creating a barrier to entry.
But do we know, do you know, or did you analyze whether we're not allowing them in the low impact areas?
Well, the way your ordinance is written, it does not include, it doesn't call out low impact as being in that preference. It's you have high impact locations are as follows: all zoning districts or areas not designated as lower impact. And so that's leading me to believe that you are promoting them to go in all areas other than lower impact areas. And if your primary residential zones are in low impact areas, then that's, I think, a barrier to entry or creating the potential of a barrier to entry.
And does the zoning describe what a high impact and low impact?
It does
area
not.
is?
There's not a definition in your definition section of low and high impact.
Right.
And
okay.
because I did look for that.
Okay.
So I'm happy to answer any other questions that you might have regarding the presentation. The next steps will be to complete this type of a presentation with each of the remaining communities and to bring Bedford into the fold. And then we'll do a draft document with all of our findings in one place and have you review it before we print the final document.
Okay. We've had a Dish come in here with a couple applications.
Mhm.
I think we just had some sidebar conversations. I think they have designs to, implement network probably in the northern area here. Are you going to does this get updated, or we're going to try to capture that, or we're just cutting off at this point?
Well, we're not going to go back and reassess where they're proposing to go.
Okay,
They're not on any of your sites yet. And so it wouldn't change your inventory. And Dish is a service provider similar to Verizon, AT&T, Sprint, T-Mobile. And so they're going to be a new competition in the area. So they're going to need to deploy their infrastructure, and they're going to try and use as many of the existing towers as possible before they build a new one.
yes. And when you say lack of capacity, how do I think about that? I mean, is that is that the bandwidth that we can carry from a given point, or is it the fact that I have, there's attenuation or some terrain that is impacting the signals?
Mhm. The bandwidth is what I'm referring to, and it will shrink and expand throughout the day based on the number of people using their wireless devices at a given time.
Got it.
So, for example, where my family and I reside, we live across the street, down the hill from a local college. And during the summer, I have excellent capacity and bandwidth because the summer school population at the college is significantly lower than in the fall. And when the students return to classes in the fall, my bandwidth during the day is pretty good. But when they're out of classes and they're streaming their video and music and looking at TikTok and doing social media, and my bandwidth is eliminated almost. So
Susan,
it
but
will change throughout the day based on the capacity of the sites.
But typically the design is towards peak capacity, right? Should we be requiring them to
You can't do
design
that.
to peak?
You can't do that.
We can't require them to design towards peak capacity?
No, you cannot get involved in their business decisions. That's what some of the federal regulation is about.
We can ask them to maybe disclose.
Well, they want to design to peak decision. They want to design
Typically
their
they do,
networks
yeah.
to peak. For sure they do. And that's why they come in and say, well, we need a site here. It's because it's based on their studies that that's a high demand location. That's why they put the infrastructure where they do.
All right, thank you.
Anybody have anything else for Susan?
Yeah, I do want to remind the board that last fall, I believe you retained the law firm of the Cone Law Group in Philadelphia to come in and rewrite your code, your zoning code in terms of the telecommunications law. That is the firm that rewrote the Bedford Code. And they're also doing North Salem, and they completed North Castles, which isn't part of this study, but you should follow up on that, Rob, because I really don't know what the status is. If the retainer agreement was returned to the Cone Law Group, they should have by now furnished the town with a draft of a new law.
Okay.
We did.
All right,
In-
I'll follow up. That's great. Thanks, Roland. I'll follow up.
In those other communities, what were the point of contacts between the law group and the community to sort of do that analysis? Did they assign a person to do that, or was it?
Well, I don't believe there was any need to do an analysis of the community. They write the codes in a fact-based way to comply with the federal communications provisions, and they're focusing on the small cell technology, which right now you have nothing in your code to control the small cell technology which would occur in your public roadways. So you need to gain control of that so that those are subject to local approval as well.
So we're going to reach out to this law firm and ask them whether they've done the work that we retained them to do. Is that really?
Correct.
Okay.
And you brought up a good point, and I needed to clarify something. The last two times I presented, we were of the opinion that you had 2 small wireless facilities in your town center. And upon further research, we found out that those 2 small wireless facilities were installed by your utility company to work the remote meter reading system. So we have updated your maps to remove those as small wireless facilities for personal wireless services. They are still small wireless facilities, but they're not being used for your wireless handsets. And you definitely do need to address small wireless facilities in the future, because you will have some in your town in the probably near to mid-distant future for sure.
Susan, when you say that those are used by, when you say our utility, I assume the electrical company for Nyserda for smart meters, or is there something else?
That's correct. The 2 that you have are installed for the smart reader system, and but the infrastructure looks and meets the definition of a small wireless facility. The AT&Ts, the Verizons, they're going to be coming in wanting to have very similar types of infrastructure in that same right of way. And based on the response from your citizenry, they want those to be concealed. And so you'd want to be sure to include that in your future ordinance, that your design standards for the rights of way would be for concealed facilities. So that's an example of how you can take the information from the poll and use it in developing design standards in the future for your gap analysis.
Listen, you said some people misinterpreted your questionnaire as being for broadband. I was just wondering, two questions. One, we had about 600 and something respondents to your questionnaire, I think you said.
Yes.
And is that a statistically reliable sampling, or how do you view that? I was looking at the difference between that and sort of the broader one that you had, and they sort of went hand in hand. Was that a good response from your point of view? And do you find that to be statistically reliable? That's a pretty good indication, maybe the tip of the iceberg, but it's pretty good indication of the iceberg.
Yes, I think it's a great response. And I think the people who had an interest in the study participated in the study. And that those who did not participate probably were maybe nonchalant about it. And the ones who wanted their voice heard participated. And I think the number of respondents was great. And it's the responses that we received in your community are consistent across the region so far.
Good.
With the responses
That's
that
interesting.
we're getting in other communities as well.
So it validates it. Yeah.
It does.
The only thing that I heard from somebody in it, I think that they did think it was for broadband, because they said, well, isn't the 5G? We had somebody here a while ago, probably a year, 2, 3 years ago, said, all the cable is going to be replaced by 5G. So this is all going to be an irrelevant topic. We were discussing, I guess, cable that night. I think we asked you this question the last time. One, do you think that that's true, or that's not something you weigh into? And second, people who thought it was broadband, were they convoluting 5G as a replacement for broadband? That's why they thought it was that.
I don't know if they did or not, if they thought 5G and broadband were one and the same, because they're not. And I do not see.
At least the one person I spoke to said, well, it's going to replace broadband. So that's how I looked at it.
Yeah, it's not. It's not.
I don't know if it will or not.
Not anytime soon, because broadband is so much more effective. I mean, cable is so much more effective and needed. It's going to, and in your community, there's no way that you're going to have complete 100% coverage in your wireless and anytime soon, and you're going to need your broadband access for high-speed internet.
So, the way I think about this, Rich, too, is that the planning horizon for Susan's work was right in the middle of COVID and ESIS and all of that. And so everybody was screaming for bandwidth and alternatives at the time. And they saw the study, and the questions were always coming about, well, what does this cover? And so they're just venting, I think, in some of the questions that, we need broadband service. And the hope is that maybe the wireless alternatives can, be an alternative to fiber line broadband. But in an emergency, I don't think that's going to be possible.
Susan, I want to say thank you so much for coming on tonight and sharing with your findings, and it's a lot for us to think about, a lot for us to break down. I have some of my homework here to reach out to some people. So thank you so much for taking the time. Really do appreciate it. So we'll be in touch.
Just one quick thing, though. Is this it, Susan, at this point? Are you finished the scope
I
of
will
work for us?
probably, I will offer at the end to come back and do a final meeting just to recap, if
Okay.
you would like.
Right.
So, because I've had some of the other towns ask to be able to do that. It's not in the contract, but I'm certainly happy to do that for
I
sure.
appreciate that.
That'd be great.
Susan,
Thank you.
also, could I just trouble you for your email address, please?
Sure. It's Susan, SUSAN, at cityscapegov, CITYSCAPEGOV.com.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right. Thanks, Susan.
All right.
Well, thank you for your participation and all of your feedback and all your help over these last few months to put all this together, and enjoy the rest of your meeting.
Thank you.
you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Susan.
Bye-bye.
We're gonna move on here now to New York Stretch Energy Code discussion. Don Bleasdale, Chairman of the Somers Energy Environment Committee. We have Michael DeWin of Nyserda, Consultant of the Energy Conservation Construction Code. Eleanor Peck from Hudson Valley Regional Council. So I'll let you guys.
So let me just
Go ahead,
real
Tom.
quick, Rob. I talked to council a week or so ago, and I've been recusing myself from certain things. This is the one thing that I have to continue to recuse myself from with my current position. So anything having to do with electricity or anything like that. So I'm going to mute, turn it off, and I'll still listen, but offer no comments. Thanks.
Sounds good. Thank you. Don, do you want to take it away here?
I just want to say, as the town clerk so recorded, I gave the thumbs up, but I just want everybody, for the record, Tom Garrity is recused.
And Don, you're on mute. Can't hear you, Don.
Don, bottom
Here we
left.
go.
There you go.
Perfect.
Okay. Nice to meet you, Supervisor
Scarano.
Scarano. Welcome to your new position.
Thank you.
So I want to thank Eleanor, Kat, and Mike for coming on. We prior to your becoming the supervisor, I'd met several times with the town board, and the last meeting a few months back, Rick had Supervisor Marcy had sort of I think for the first time to me sort of expressed that he thought it was going to be a worthwhile thing to do in terms of looking into getting the stretch code adopted for the town after having spoken to several builders on his end. And I remember also in a prior meeting, in the last 6 months or so, I think one of the councilmen had asked, "Is there any incentive to adopt any of this stuff?" And turns out there are incentives, and Eleanor's going to share a bunch of that with you. The stretch code is sort of a big one in terms of this menu of different things we can do, and so. Eleanor's going to, I think, speak first, and then Mike will do his piece on the stretch code and obviously answer any of your questions. So I'll turn it over to Eleanor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Don. I'm just going to share my screen if that's all right with everybody.
Sure.
Can you all see the slideshow?
Yep.
Great.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So good evening. Thank you for having me. So I'd like to thank the board for this opportunity. I'm going to present a really quick overview of the Nyserda Clean Energy Communities Program. My name is Eleanor Peck, and I serve as a Mid-Hudson Clean Energy Communities Coordinator with the Hudson Valley Regional Council. I brought my colleague, Kat Carroll, with me today. She's going to be helping Somers and other Westchester towns and villages since I'm going on maternity leave next week.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah.
So Hudson Valley Regional Council is one of 9 regional councils in New York State and one of over 600 nationally. We provide technical support to municipalities across the areas listed here. The leadership round of the Clean Energy Communities Program offers flexible grant funding for clean energy projects with no local cost share and creates pathways to lower utility bills in homes, businesses, and municipal buildings through a variety of high impact actions. So these are your clean energy community coordinators in the Hudson Valley. We connect local governments with resources and toolkits designed to facilitate the pursuit of these high impact actions. And we connect municipalities with local entities that can support your completion of actions as well. So since the initial launch of the Clean Energy Communities Program in 2016, more than 700 communities have participated across the state. The leadership round expands the number of opportunities. There used to be 10 actions you could take, and now there's 24 of them. This leadership round also provides more diverse pathways towards getting these no match grant awards. So these grant awards are available on a first come, first served basis. There are $17 million total in grant awards available. Each region has $880,000 dedicated just to that region. And we can also, towns across and villages across the state can compete for the additional $8 million that is available statewide. So there's 3 types of grants that are available. All of them are match free. There's designation grants, point-based grants, and action awards. Small and medium communities are those under 40,000 residents. So Somers would be considered a small or medium-sized community. And this slide shows what Somers has accomplished so far in the Clean Energy Community Program. And next, I'm going to show you what you could achieve in terms of grant awards. There's a lot for it to get through here, but the point-based grants reward communities for accumulating for completing actions by accumulating points. So the more energy an action saves or the more greenhouse gas emissions it reduces, the more points you earn. And that leads to larger and larger grants over time. Point-based grants are available in separate buckets by points, by community size, and by your geography. In the Mid-Hudson, our larger grants are already gone, but there's still 20 $10,000 grants left if a community reaches 3,000 points in the program. What we're here mostly to talk about tonight, right, New York Stretch Code, is part of this action grant section. So you can receive an action grant by passing the New York Stretch Energy Code or by completing a community campaign. The grant award amounts and the number of grants available differ by the type of, by community size and by the type of action taken. So if the town decides to move forward with adopting New York Stretch and it takes effect by the end of June, it could be eligible for a $5,000 grant award. If the town decides to move forward with a community campaign, it could be eligible for an additional $5,000 per campaign completed. Now I'm going to pass the presentation over to Kat to complete.
Thank you, Eleanor. In these last few slides, I'll touch on the high impact actions that may be of interest to the town before Mike DeWine goes in depth on the New York Stretch Energy Code. Each of these actions reduces energy consumption, stimulates the local and regional economy, and can result in multiple grant awards, as Eleanor has already noted. The leadership round, next slide, please.
One sec, it's not going.
Oh, good.
There we go.
So the leadership round point-based grants reward communities for completed actions through the accumulation of points. The 24 actions are nested within these 14 high impact action categories. Actions come with a variety of points. Those with a set number of points are single level actions, and others with ranges like community campaigns include sub actions that each come with their respective grant allocations. Next slide. So this chart here provides a snapshot of the actions that are available to different local governments, including towns. The town is eligible for all but one high impact action. And in the next slide, I'm going to touch on a few actions that are available to the town and that you might be interested in. So here we've selected a total of 5 actions that the town of Somers may be interested in. These actions combined would come to a total of 1,800 points. The addition of New York Stretch would bring the town to 3,000 points, making the town eligible for 3 $5,000 grants and 1 $10,000 grant. So I'll quickly go through them. This year,
I'm sorry, Kat, you said 3 $5,000 and 1 $10,000?
Yes, correct. If all of these actions are taken together. So this year, the CEC program will again be offering energy code enforcement training to compliance officers. This free hands-on training provides 8 hours of in-service credit on the current New York State Energy Code and meets the Department of State's training requirements. So I would encourage your code enforcement officials to attend and take advantage of this training. The benchmarking action provides a helpful pathway for understanding town building energy usage, and then identifying where clean energy dollars can be best invested. You've already passed the resolution to benchmark your buildings. So the next step would be advanced reporting, in which energy usage is tracked in Energy Star Portfolio Manager, which is a free program that we can provide training on. One of the other actions we selected is clean fleets, in which you can choose to either purchase a new electric vehicle or purchase an electric vehicle charger. And the Hudson Valley Regional Council can provide current funding opportunities to support the clean fleets actions if the town is considering vehicle replacements. Funding is also available for charging stations. As far as community campaigns go, they're a great way to encourage clean energy among residents and get grant funding for your community. To complete a campaign, you first submit a scoping document to Nyserda. We have a template available. Sustainable Westchester has succeeded at assisting many Westchester municipalities with demand response, community solar, and clean heating campaigns. And finally, towns in Westchester are also eligible to adopt PACE financing, which enables eligible commercial buildings to secure funding for renewable energy projects and upgrades. So those are the 5 actions that we thought you might be interested in. As noted before, the total amount of points gained if you undertake all 5 of these actions is 1,800, and the addition of New York Stretch would bring the town to 3,000 points, 3 $5,000 grants, and 1 $10,000 grant. Eleanor and I look forward to answering any questions you may have about these actions. And with that, I'd like to introduce Mike DeWine, a circuit rider contracted by Nyserda to assist Westchester communities in passing the New York Stretch Energy Code. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Kat.
Good evening, everybody. How y'all doing?
Good, Mike. How are you?
Great.
Mike.
I'm getting there. I'm in kind of a funny position here. I've got a new knee and I'm in a recliner with an ice pack on a new knee. Can you see my screen okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to leave it in this view if we need to jump around between slides and all. But yeah, good evening and thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be working with the folks at Hudson Valley Regional Council on the CEC action items, particularly this New York Stretch Code. I'm glad that you folks are considering adopting the New York Stretch to get yourself one step farther along in the CEC process. So what is the New York Stretch Code? Essentially, it's just an energy code that's about 10-11% more efficient than the current statewide code that you're adopting now. It's always been, since 1979, part of the Article 11 of the energy law that communities can adopt a more efficient energy code if they so choose. And quite a few communities in Long Island and the Hudson Valley over the years have done so. Many of them adopted the Energy Star Homes program for residential buildings as a stretch code back when. Since then, Nyserda put together this New York Stretch Energy Code so that these various advanced codes better aligned with one another and could meet New York State regulation as well. The stretch code is an overlay of the current Energy Code in New York State 2020, which is based on the 2018 IECC, or International Energy Conservation Code, which is a national model code that that we base the development of all of our New York codes on, the international codes. And generally follow a 3-year cycle, as do the national model codes. The New York Stretch Code is nothing, it's not rocket science. Again, it's only 11% more efficient than the current energy code. It utilizes, the same stuff, a little more energy, a little more insulation, a little better window, et cetera, et cetera. And it doesn't require any new enforcement processes than your code officials are using now. So it's all set in an overlay of that base code. Again, Kat and Eleanor just covered this, but it's one of the biggest point getters for the clean energy community programs, and you now understand the potential for grants under this, incentives under this program. In addition, and we'll talk about that briefly here, many of the things that are required in the New York Stretch Code are incentivized by your utility. Lots of benefits for communities, for the state. It's cost effective. The cost increment increase is between 1% and 2% for new construction. And the paybacks, which we'll take a look at shortly, are generally 10 years or better. And that's simple payback. That's not even thinking about life cycle costing. That's just simple payback. It has greater greenhouse gas reductions, et cetera, and also helps ensure verifiable performance of the building. Most importantly for the communities and the state is that it addresses the 40% of energy usage which is consumed by our buildings. There's lots of energy and non-energy benefits. Of course, it saves building owners, homeowners, tenants, energy dollars that result in lower operating costs. And it's been long proven by ACEEE and a number of national organizations and international organizations that money saved in energy codes and energy programs stay in your community. For all the reasons, both because they're beneficial to the building owners, but also because most of the products and services are picked up in your community. It also utilizes a local workforce, which you may or may not have noticed. Nyserda and other state agencies are building at a great rate with workforce development fundings. And of course, it's a major focus of the Clean Air Act that was passed in the last couple of years, that the initiatives for which are just starting to surface now, that we'll be seeing a great deal of in the coming year. Again, lots of economic development opportunities there. Green codes, energy efficient codes increase the attractiveness of your community to people who are buying and investing in the community. More resilient and healthier buildings are also a result. The New York Stretch Code and the Energy Code itself includes requirements that make for healthier buildings, healthier indoor environments, more comfortable indoor environments, which of course is a big focus now, what with the COVID epidemic and such. And it also has opportunities to take advantage of a very large energy efficient professional infrastructure to assist as third parties with code compliance as well. Something that many communities are going to. The biggest example right down the road, and of course in New York City. So let's talk a little bit about commercial construction costs and cost benefit. Statewide, and taking a look at all commercial building types, or at least 9 of them that represent commercial buildings. The percent savings is around 7%. The incremental cost is around $1 a square foot, and the simple payback is a little over 10 years. To zero in a little bit more on climate zone 4, which your town is in, the construction weight of commercial buildings may not be so in Somers, but throughout the region, about 71%. The energy cost savings are almost 6%. The incremental cost, again, this is by climate zone, it's a little under $1 a square foot. The simple payback of around 11 years. Now, all these paybacks, again, are simple payback calculations and don't take into effect or account the savings you get when you take advantage of the utility incentives in your utility region. So those paybacks and cost savings also improve. On the residential side, same deal. Single family, the increased cost is around $2,000. For multifamily, a little over $1,500. Paybacks around 5 to 6, and under 10 for single family and multifamily respectively. Again, looking closer at your climate zone, and again, without taking advantage of the incentives for additional insulation, for better windows, for better HVAC systems and such, similar numbers. Incremental costs around $2,500 to around $1,500 for single family and multifamily. Again, paybacks around 10 years, and that's in your region.
Michael, so this does also cover renovations. You said, is this also right? New projects and for major renovations?
The code itself does cover both, just like the base code does. The current New York State Energy Code covers changes to existing buildings, but it only requires increased efficiency, if you will, for the new work you are doing in that particular building. For example, if you're adding attic insulation to a home or to the roof of the commercial building, you only have to improve or increase the insulation to that you are changing, wherever the new work goes. So this cost benefit analysis is entirely around new construction, because trying to do the cost benefit analysis for the myriad of things that can be renovated in an existing building is pretty tough. But again, it only covers the new work and is only slightly more than what you would have to do for the current energy code and would be enforced for that. Good example, we had when I was working with Bedford to adopt the New York stretch code, we were asked by a commercial roofing contractor, well, he replaces flat roofs on commercial buildings, replaces the roofing, and then what's usually damaged insulation underneath it He was worried that, it would drive up the cost of his roofing contracts. And when we looked at what the base energy code, the existing current energy code required, it was the new insulation level was R30. Well, to go to the New York stretch, you would only have to add another R5, which is about an inch of the same insulation they use to do the roof for the base energy code. So, as it turned out, he wasn't concerned about that at all. In fact, he didn't think it would change his estimates at all. But does that answer your question?
Yeah.
So
it
these
does.
estimates are for new construction.
Okay.
They haven't been done for renovation work because there's just too many different options.
Got it.
So again, there's lots of incentive programs that can make this even more cost effective, and with a little bit of outreach to your utilities and to Nyserda, and also probably NYPA in your neck of the woods as well. There are quite a few incentives that building owners can take advantage of that can, in some cases I've heard, basically nullify the incremental cost difference. There still are the same residential and commercial compliance paths are all the same as the base code. Only one has been added, and that is for passive house compliance. Passive house is a program that's gained a lot of interest, and a lot of folks are going to, both for homes and for commercial buildings. It uses the same energy rating index that you see here as is used for the energy code and the other performance paths. So again, the energy rating index for passive house, and anybody who's in the passive house program can use that program to comply with the New York stretch code, as well as the energy code, the base energy code. Not mandatory. There's lots of options. There's lots of flexibility for designers and builders to do what they do best and comply. And one of those things that many jurisdictions use, I've been training code officials and builders, designers, engineers since, oh gosh, the late 70s on energy codes, and then nationwide since then in another 30 states. And one of the most popular systems for showing compliance, very, very simple to use. It's free and available on the web from the Department of Energy, is what's known as the ComCheck and the ResCheck software systems. And you'll see here is just an example using the ComCheck system, that there's a bunch of different codes. It's available for a lot of different states, but you'll see in the list, there's one version available for the New York stretch code. So this compliance tool, which many jurisdictions use already, and in fact, when I'm working with jurisdictions, communities, I highly recommend that they require this for documentation, because it makes their jobs a slam dunk, basically. And so, the reports, certificates from this software can be generated or submitted electronically. It can be printed, and there are pieces for the various parts of the compliance and all the data that the code official needs. It's just sitting right there. In addition, there's plan review and site inspection checklists that it generates for the code official. So hopefully, your code enforcement folks are taking advantage of this tool already. To go to New York stretch, all they have to do is make sure they guide folks to select the right
Right. Code. Okay.
the right code. So what's different again, pretty simple. Some building envelope insulation requirements, slightly better window performance. You know, one of the renovations that people do commonly is doing replacement windows in their existing homes. I just did mine in half of my house, for example, and I picked a window that was basically the baseline. It was a U value, which is the inverse of R value, but it measures thermal capabilities and efficiency, just like the R value does, which was as good as what was being required by the New York stretch. So again, not a big leap. There are some improved equipment requirements and controls, mainly moving to the newer control systems rather than always pushing for a more efficient furnace or boiler or chiller. There are options to do a lot better by simply controlling how the equipment is being used or not used when people are not in a room or in a building or in a home. There are a couple of requirements for solar and electric vehicle readiness, essentially. In other words, they're not requiring electric vehicle charging stations. They're requiring that in the process of design, you simply make sure there's enough room in the panel and a path for wiring to go to a charger if the homeowner or if the building owner wants to add one later on. And likewise for solar photovoltaics. Just taking care of what's known as the soft costs, some of the upfront costs, and if you do it after the fact, is considerably more expensive, but giving the building owners an option to go that way if they want to down the road. Not required by the code, but those readiness things are required. And it's pretty much the same for the residential side. More efficient insulation by a little bit more lighting efficiency and controls. Lighting is pretty much a slam dunk. The utilities are all but giving away the high efficiency lighting. If a builder isn't working with them already, I don't know if they're in the right business.
Mike, can you go back one? I want to ask you a question because I'm getting a little bit lost with all the details, to be honest with you.
Yeah, sorry.
But I am interested down the bottom. It says download a comparison document for
I'm going to
the
show you.
differences.
I'm going to show you a whole bunch of
Can
resources.
Can you email us that? I think that is instructive to see the differences.
I can
And then
show
I am
you.
I am interested in what the impact of this is. You said with the builders, not very much. And it's certainly, the future is in energy savings and people want to buy homes. They always want to save money on energy. So to me, this makes sense, but I do want to understand the differences that this would, what this would make, the stretch code. It wouldn't cost the town anything. In fact, we would get money, $5,000 just for adopting it. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, good.
Well, 5,000 plus you would have points towards greater awards, and also some other, and it could lay the groundwork for future incentives as well. This is something that, this is a track that the state is on. There will be down the road when the next version of the energy code and all state codes are adopted in a couple of years. You'll see a new energy code, plus you'll see a new stretch code down there with the same kind of opportunities that exist and incentives that you can't take for the basic energy code. So I will show you a bunch of resources shortly.
Mike,
I'll just jump into, sorry.
Go ahead. Sorry, Eleanor. Mike, you're going to, I think to Rich's point, you're going to send this out to us.
Well, I'll give you you'll get the link right now, and you can go to a page with all the stuff that I'm going to show you. It's just a couple slides down here. So hang on a second and we'll talk about that then, okay?
And I just wanted to know the stretch code would have to be adopted by the end of June to receive that $5,000 grant.
Right, we saw that earlier, right? And that's really what we're here for, is to understand, what does the stretch code do? What does it require of people? What are the advantages of it? I mean, that's really it in a nutshell, I guess.
Sure. Lots of buildings, some case studies, one in Hudson, just up the river a little bit. And actually, this is a colder heating degree day zone, so they have to do a little bit more. But Galvan Foundations and the River Architects have built that, which complies with the New York Stretch Code. Also, up in Western New York, actually in the Finger Lakes region, there's a whole set of townhomes that were built to the New York Stretch requirements. And likewise, a place called Zero Place, which meets and exceeds the New York Stretch Code. They actually went to ground source heat pumps there and were able to exceed the New York Stretch Code because of it there. So, there's quite a few builders using Passive House in the Hudson Valley. Builders and developers that are going beyond code and even the New York Stretch Code that can
Like the
easily
Boniellos
comply with this.
in our town. The Boniellos are building Somers Cross, and they use ground sourced geothermal.
Oh yeah, and their developments, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's good stuff, because that's when you want to do it and roll the costs into the development.
Right.
So the Hudson Valley's been a hotbed of activity. I've been involved with, a couple dozen communities that have adopted or in process, and then there's another couple dozen in process who are looking at it right now. This map isn't updated, but you see some of the municipalities here: Ossining, Hastings on Hudson, Bedford, over in Marbletown, Beacon, Montour Falls, Dobbs Ferry, and on and on.
Mike, show me with this slide here, right? This presentation, show me like the top three slides left here that you want to show me what you think, because I think there is interest in what we're in this, right? And I think we have to kind of talk it over and place it, something we want to see. But give me the top three slides that you have here, so we can just take and you can speak to those.
All right, so again, there's lots of resources. The link for that is here. I can send you that comparison and a couple of these things. There's a new guide, but there's an adoption guide which has model local laws that your council would just have to modify for the town, and it's all set to go. You do have to file with the Department of State, a simple submittal, and the Code Council as well. There's two simple filings that no doubt your council's familiar with. There's training and technical support. Of course, you get me. My time is your time, and if if we leave here tonight and you have all kinds of questions, just don't hesitate to pick up the phone, email me, whatever. Again, my time is your time from this point on. Lots of tools and checklists. There'll be a single volume code manual, which your code official will love. The New York Stretch materials will be overlaid on the base code, the statewide code. There's the res check and com check tools. There's a hotline. Again, I'm the circuit rider for your area. And here's the link to it. I can send some of this stuff, or I can send you the link and you can have access to all of it. Existing buildings we really covered. That's about it. It's most important anyway.
Roland, can I ask you a question? If the town were to wanted to the board wanted to go ahead with this, would we be able to adopt this by June, which would enable us to get that grant money? Is that possible?
Is it June 1st or June 30th?
Ellen, are you still?
30th. It's the
June
30th.
Well,
End of June.
we would not have any problem doing that. I do want to point out to the board that, North Salem adopted this law towards the end of last year, the stretch law. But what it did in its case is it built in a little bit of flexibility for the building inspector because he wasn't sure if he was going to be able to enforce all of these provisions. And the Building Code Council, when it reviewed the law, found it unacceptable. So North Salem ended up having to rescind the law that it had passed. And now it thinks it's found a way forward and is going to hold a public hearing to try and re-adopt it. My point in mentioning all this is that your starting point is really to make sure that your building department is capable, feels that it's capable of enforcing the provisions, because there will be a law and it's going to have to be enforced.
Yeah, and to that end, I am available to meet separately with your building code department to walk through it and show them how it works. I mean, again, it works the same as the existing code that they currently enforce. In other words, the game's the same. Some of the numbers have changed a very little bit.
Right.
But I'm glad to meet with them separately, get on a Zoom with them, whatever. There is specialized training for the New York stretch code for them as well, which is accredited, so they can get up to speed on it.
Yep.
Mike, your PowerPoint is comprehensive. It's a great resource. Did I get a copy of it and I missed it, or can you send us a copy if we don't already have it?
Of the presentation?
Yeah, what you just did there. It's got so much information.
Yeah, I'm glad to. I'm glad
please
to.
do.
I'm not sure who best to send it to, but I'll figure that out.
Mike, you can send it to me and I'll pass it on to.
Okay. And again, on this slide here, slide 20, is the link to all of those documents, including the adoption guide, which, by the way, has been updated. What happened with a couple of your neighbors that adopted was that the good old Department of State in all their glory had 2 years to review the New York stretch code and apparently didn't look too close. And after all these folks started adopting, they looked much more closely and they found a couple conflicts with the basic building codes. So now these poor communities had to go back and say, well, and of course they were so helpful in telling them what exactly was conflicted, but we have figured that all out. Nyserda has, and that's in the newest adoption guide, which is now at this site here, along with that comparison document that you asked about as well.
Right.
So again, do not, every time I'm in sessions like this, it's always 15 minutes later or the next morning. I say, well, why the heck didn't I ask DeWine this? Do not hesitate to call me or email me if I'm not right there. And I'm not going so fast with this new knee yet. If I'm not right there, you just leave a message and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Promise that.
Mike, thanks so much. Listen, there's a lot here, right? We're gonna take a look at all the information that you sent us. You're gonna send us here, and then we'll talk about everything here, and then we'll get back in touch with you guys. And I know we have a June 30th deadline, right, Eleanor? June 30th. You may not know that or not, but you'll be having, I'm maternity leave, so can
I'll be back by then. So if you
You
all
will, okay.
wait until June, then I will be here to help you. But Kat will be there in the meantime to help Mike.
Well, you got Kat too.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And June 30, gosh, you guys can get this stuff done by then, my gosh.
Can I ask a question of Eleanor before we go? You said earlier that we're eligible for a variety of grants totaling about 25K. we're eligible for those grants. What can we do to draw a distinction between eligibility and predictability for those funds?
Yes. So completing those actions that Kat went through would get you up to $25,000. The grants, what happens is when you reach those high impact actions levels and they're approved by Nyserda, they become, assuming there are still grants remaining at that time, because there's a certain level of grants remaining, they become set aside for the town of Somers. So you would still have to apply for them, but they're set aside for you as long as you meet the deadline. Then they will definitely approve you. If they reject the application for some reason, then they'd give you another chance to apply. So it's not necessarily a competitive grant system, but you do have to meet those actions and make sure there's still grants remaining to have it actually get the money.
Thank you.
The only thing I would add is that there are currently around 20 of the 3,000 point grants left, the $10,000 grants. But the New York stretch deadline is June 30th for that specific $5,000 grant.
Right. The rest don't have deadlines necessarily, just the number of grants remaining.
The pool.
Yeah.
All
Eleanor,
right,
the next
so
time you come, bring your baby though. We want to see it.
Will do.
No extra charge, I hope. No.
thank you all for being leaders in your region. I mean that. And again, don't hesitate to give me a shout. At that, I'm gonna head down the road here.
Thank you,
Have a
Mike.
good evening.
Thank you
Good luck
guys.
with your
Really
knee.
appreciate it. Thank you so much.
And Kat and Eleanor, thanks so much. And Eleanor, best of luck with you. And we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay.
So I know you have other agenda items to go on, but thank you for that, and to be continued.
Yeah, Don, thanks so much for hopping on tonight, and it was nice meeting you.
You too.
Thanks.
So Don,
Thanks,
our
Don.
next step, we just got to discuss it, weigh it, talk to our building department about it. Would that be the basic thing you're recommending
Yeah,
to us?
and I think as Mike said, Mike would be happy to talk to them. I don't think it's a heavy lift from them. It's probably a little more insulation, a little more of a couple things. So, but to allay their concerns, that would be to me the next step.
Yeah.
And yeah, obviously, like I said, the Boniello is one of the biggest builders in town, I'm sure. And Ken Carney, I believe, is coming on as well, if he's not on already. I know that some of the buildings that they're doing in the town probably meet or exceed this code. And so it's smart building to build, homes this way. And builders are finding that out. So, but yeah, any questions to me or feel free to ask me, and I'll follow up, and I'll send you copies of the PowerPoint if you care to look more deeply into that.
Yeah, I would. So if you could send that over, that'd be great.
Sure.
Thanks a lot, Don.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks, Don.
Thanks, Don.
Bye-bye.
Well, all right. So let's head on here now to item 4 here, Reynolds Drive, Trailside Estates at Somers, Trailside Estates at Somers presentation. So Carney Realty and Development Group. Thank you guys for being patient this evening. Truly appreciate your patience. If you'd like to, someone like to start it off here, that'd be great.
Sure, I'll start it off. Supervisor Scarano, good to see you. Councilman Chirico, Councilman Clinchy, Councilman Garrity, Councilman Faulkner, and Councilor Barone. Great to see you all again. I think the last time I was in front of you all was for our last development at Somers, Crossroads of Baldwin Place, which we have successfully completed and moved our office to. Tonight, we want to discuss with you a new development that we're very excited about, Trailside Estates at Somers. I'm going to turn it over to Rich Williams, the project engineer, who has various maps and can give you an overview. I'm here with our counsel, Charles Montalbano, and Christian Donahue from our office. And after Richie gives a presentation, I just want to speak a little bit about the community benefit and the design benefits of the townhomes. Rich?
Great, thanks, Ken. And good evening, everyone. Rich Williams, Insight
Hey, Rich.
Engineering.
How are you, bud?
We're hanging in there.
Good.
Tonight, I want to go through a couple of things with you. I just want to start by giving you an overall context provide a setting for where this fits in the Baldwin Place area. I'm going to put an aerial up on my screen in a couple of minutes to show you that. We'll focus on the site plan itself and what we're actually proposing. I'd like to talk to you about the MFR-BP zone and the next steps and some of our goals in working with the town and where we'd like to head. And then I'm just going to turn it back over to Ken, as he said. So to start with sharing my screen, everyone should be looking at an aerial of the Baldwin Place area. We are before you tonight to seek 2 pieces of property, which total 56.88 acres. We're here to have the MFR-BP floating zone applied to them. The MFR zones, there's 3 of them in the town of Somers, the MFR-BP, the MFR-H, and the MFR-DH. And they're floating zones that can be applied in certain criteria, the MFR-BP being the one for the Baldwin Place area, and are in our code in order to promote multifamily residential housing. So on this aerial, I've taken a large clip of part of Baldwin Place from Mahopac Avenue to 118 on the top of my screen. And just before I get anyone disoriented, north is not up on this drawing just because of the length of the area we're talking. North is to the right side of the screen. So you have Mahopac Avenue, you have Route 6, 118, which wraps in and ties to Route 6 at the Somers Common Shopping Center. For reference, you have Green Tree Road, Moore Drive. This is the preserve at Somers, Lounsbury Drive, Meadow Park, Baldwin Place Shopping Center. And as you move down Route 6, you have Crossroads at Baldwin Place, where Ken's office was recently moved. We have the Somers Realty Plan Hamlet, which was part of the overall tract that these 2 pieces came out of. I'm also going to talk a little bit about Reynolds Drive, which is the road that was constructed as part of the Somers Realty Plan Hamlet to give us access to the properties we're seeking to develop with Trailside Estates at Somers. I am now outlining with my cursor the 2 properties that make up Trailside Estates. Our eastern border is the North County Trailway, more commonly known as the bike path. The bike path has an entrance point here at the Somers Common Shopping Center. And just also for point of reference, right along the bottom of my page right here is the Town of Somers Cable Park. So what we're seeking to do is develop 79 townhomes on these 2 pieces of property. The first is here, which is 19.9 acres. And the second is here, which is 36.9. Again, they sum to 56.8. And we're seeking to construct 79 townhomes. There'll be for sale townhomes with a recreation center in support of the community. We're also proposing to preserve 20 acres. It's actually slightly larger than 20 acres along our eastern boundary, along the bike trail. And I'll talk a little bit about the benefits of that in a few minutes. And on the northern end of the site, construct a community center that would be given to the town of Somers. We envision this to be about a 3,000 square foot community center. And as I talk about our development in a few minutes, I'm going to talk about how we want to integrate that with the North County Trailway, as well as the conservation area, to create a more interactive experience where you can have some nature trails along the bike trail and also tie it to the community center and make it accessible to the residents of the Somers Realty Plan Hamlet. Just to give everybody a little bit more point of reference with all the development that's happened in this area, because there's been a lot of exciting things happen. The Somers Realty Plan Hamlet was approved circa 2007. And that originally had a vision for a series of components. It was a mixed use development, actually one of which the town of Somers was recently given an award from the Westchester County Municipal Planning Federation. And what it did, it envisioned senior housing. It also originally envisioned for sale townhouses, an assisted living facility, and then a mix of commercial, retail, and restaurant uses. And the reason I'm talking about this is because it leads to how we get access to our property. And also these 2 pieces were originally part of that original tract. And these are the remaining pieces that actually weren't developed as part of the Plan Hamlet. So in 2007, the development of the Plan Hamlet moved into construction with the Muse at Baldwin Place Phase 1, which is one of Ken's projects. And then followed in 2009 with Muse at Baldwin Place Phase 2. These are both senior affordable housing apartment style. The largest component of the planned hamlet was the residential component. And the original master plan for the planned hamlet envisioned that to be a for sale townhouse style development. And if this board remembers, we spent some time in 2015 with Somers Realty and Avalon, and some time with the planning board as well when Avalon came forward, because at that time, there was a very tough market and a tough time for Somers Realty to find a townhouse developer that would come in and develop townhomes on this property. And we spent a lot of time talking to the various boards about whether or not it was appropriate to move to an apartment style housing developer, which ended up becoming Avalon Bay on the site, and what that meant for the diversity of housing that was originally proposed as part of the planned hamlet. Obviously, everybody moved forward with Avalon, which is 152 units of apartment style housing. And then following that, we developed Artis Senior Living, which was the assisted living component. Artis is a memory care assisted living facility. Avalon Bay itself is our neighbor, and also yours. They own one piece of property here, one piece of property here, and one piece of property here that surrounds a town of Somers owned piece of property. So just to refresh the board's memory, the town of Somers owns this small square in here. It was previously called the water tower parcel because it's at the same height as the Amwalk-Shenrock water tower, and was always thought that you could put a water tower here that would act as a sister tower to the Amwalk-Shenrock water tower. That wasn't until we moved forward with Hidden Meadow, which is one of the other projects in Baldwin Place just down the street that Ken developed, which has been a success. That project was the impetus to what's commonly known as Adams Loop, or the connection of the water mains, which ultimately kind of pulled us away from ever needing to build a water tower here. So during the third phase of the planned hamlet, which was Avalon, we constructed, or we got approval for and constructed Reynolds Drive. The planned hamlet always recognized that these last two pieces that were also part of that Somers Realty tract were landlocked. And so the planned hamlet always made a provision for an access road that would come through the planned hamlet and integrate into these two properties. That road was built in part as part of Avalon Bay at Somers. It actually stops right here in a hammerhead. The road was built to item 4. It was never finished and paved, and that was done on purpose, knowing that there was going to be a future development. We obviously didn't want to pave a road in order to destroy it with construction. So we left this road unpaved, knowing that it would be the main access route to these back two pieces. The reason this becomes important is because I think Trailside Estates at Somers is going to offer a couple of benefits to the town of Somers that I want to walk you through. First, it's going to integrate with the planned hamlet very well. It is our only means of access, so we are going to be integrated with the planned hamlet. No matter what, we don't have a choice. We're going to drive through it to get to our site. But we're going to offer that diversity of housing that we originally talked about in 2015 as potentially being lost. So you're now going to have the ability to have apartment style housing, non-age restricted. You have your senior affordable housing. You still have that assisted living facility, but we also have the opportunity to offer that for sale townhouse development that the planned hamlet thought was important with respect to diversity of housing. We're also going to be able to satisfy one of the items identified in the comprehensive plan. One of the recommendations in the town's comp plan and things that it notes is we need to provide more townhouse style housing throughout the town based on our aging population. Just going through the zoning code and working with it and being familiar, the MFR zones are one of the main ways you can accomplish that goal. And with limited area to do it, this is one of the last remaining pieces where you can put multifamily townhouse in close proximity and to integrate with your downtown hamlet areas. Another benefit out of this project is our proximity to the Somers Common Shopping Center. Recently, the shopping center appeared before the planning board. They were talking about the changing dynamics of shopping centers and how to keep them alive. And they were acknowledging that they need more population mass in the area to help them survive and thrive. Based on our proximity to the shopping center and based on how we're going to integrate with the planned hamlet, we're going to be direct users of the shopping center and help bring that population mass they were seeking. Another unique feature that you can see from this aerial clearly is we're on our own island. This development is not visible from surrounding communities. As you move down the trailway or the bike path, if you start at UBP and come down and walk, you'll notice there's a series of ponds on your left side. Right when you get to this second pond here, the bike path turns into essentially a valley with steep embankments on both sides. It gets almost 12 feet in height by the time you're down at Moore Drive. And then it's not until you get to this house that you start to come out of that valley and the bike path starts to move back into a fill section. So you're not going to be visible for the majority of the bike path, if at all. You're going to have limited to no visibility from all the surrounding residential neighbors on the east side of the bike path. This is a single piece of property owned, my understanding, by a family that actually owned the majority of this property in the northwest corner of Baldwin Place. You have Stonewall Farm, which will not be visible from, and you have an undeveloped piece of property here, which did have access provided to it as part of the planned hamlet. So we do sit on an island, but complementary of that, when Ken had us look at layouts and designing trailside estates, he had some very specific goals in mind. One was preservation and conservation. You'll notice the 20 plus acres is on the eastern border, which is right alongside the trailway. That was done intentionally in order to create a buffer between us and the trailway. It was also done intentionally to create pedestrian linkages and nature trails, which you can jump on and off the trailway. Right now, if people trespass and do that, you'll find that there is a one access point across from Moore Drive that is very steep. We believe through our project and through this conservation area, we'll be able to create another access point through the community center, and then create a series of nature trails through this conservation easement to preserve it. It also contains wetlands through the center of our site that we had delineated. We did just a very rough initial delineation and had our wetland consultant out there. We survey located what he flagged. There are some wetlands through the center of the site, and those are going to be in the conservation area to permanently protect them. As you move north, again, this was part of Ken's master plan and way to help preserve. We have a 7.5 acre piece of property here that surrounds the community center, which would become part of that community center property. So essentially what's going to happen is you're going to end up preserving approximately half of this 56 acres, and it's all going to be along this eastern property, which adjoins the bike trail. So we've put a lot of thought and effort in how to design this sense of, being sensitive to the surrounding communities, being sensitive to the environmental features. We've thought about how to make it integrate with the planned hamlet and the adjacent shopping center. We thought about the type of housing we would put back here and how it would meet the goals of the comprehensive plan and also help complement the type of housing that was already built in the planned hamlet. And we think this would be a real win for Somers. As far as some of the things we'd like to talk about in next
Rich,
steps.
can I just ask you a question there?
Yeah, of course.
Can you just help me as I'm looking at your map? So we got basically two pieces of property that are bifurcated with some green in the middle of it. Am I correct? Yeah.
Am I pointing right here?
Well, no, just to the what would be to the west of that, in between where the housing is. And so in between the two, I guess those are the buildings, right?
Yeah, the brown are the buildings.
Yeah. And then if you just come to the east of that, is this one piece of property, or are there two pieces of property that's something in the middle of it on your map?
No, they are two separate tax parcels. The first tax parcel follows my cursor here.
Yeah.
The second tax parcel is here.
Okay.
And they're one piece of property.
What about the parcel towards Mayapack Avenue? Like it's on the other side of the, yeah.
This here?
Well, be closer to the development though. I mean, is there a buffer there?
This is all part of Avalon Bay at Somers here. And this piece here is owned by an individual. I believe his last name is Tettenbaum.
So when you go south, yeah, that big spot, yeah, okay.
Yep, right here. And then this is the piece of property where the house burned a couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
This is owned by I believe a single family out in California.
And the white shaded property below the houses is what would be donated to the town?
And this would be the conservation area, yes.
Okay, and how much
as-
from the bike path? Any idea how far we are from the bike path to the homes?
I will scale an exact number while Ken's talking, but it's substantial.
It is, and it's all going to remain wooded and in its current state.
Correct.
Okay.
So, I mean, your proposal is to donate that portion there that borders the trail?
I've chosen my words carefully tonight to
Yeah, I
say
know.
conserve. There's many different ways that this can be conserved, from easements to conservation areas,
Okay,
to actually creating parcels and donating. Obviously, we're looking at the 56.8 acres being in the MFRBP. We believe we're compliant with the standards of the MFRBP zone. As we start to take property away, we have to make sure that we can still meet all the setbacks.
so Rich, what's the acreage of that property that's outlined that borders the trail?
This would be about 20.4 acres here.
And then there's another 7 around.
Yes.
Around here. Yep.
That's right.
And so
So
right there, where your cursor was, that's going to be the community benefit, the senior/community center that will be given to the town, and we could work in conjunction with you guys as to sort of what we would need in it, so to speak. Ken?
Yes.
Yeah.
My plan here, the senior center is, the concept of a senior center / community center is near and dear to my heart. We own 250 or 60 apartments here. 95% of those are for senior citizens. And I feel that this location, yes, we're going to build this. We're going to donate it to the town. You'll have additional land to do more if the town wants 5 or 10 years from now. But, the focus here is recreation. How can we get the seniors to get more involved in recreation, make it easier for them, right? We're going to connect the community center with the rail trail. And Rich, if you can put up a rendering of the community center.
yes.
And it's built on a grade. So you go in the first floor, we'll put in an elevator, which will bring you down to the lower level. The lower level, we'll design it in a way with 2 bathrooms down there. And we'll also have lockers for their shoes and so forth to make it convenient for the seniors to come. There you go. You'll see it's built on a grade. You walk in here, you have the first floor. You do have a second floor. Between the lower level, the first floor, and the second floor, it's approximately 3,500 square feet. But the lower level, where you would walk in, go down to the lower level, we're going to have an area where the seniors can, store walking shoes. We're going to have a patio out the rear where they can store bicycles. And I feel between that and the proximity to the rail trail, and knowing that, they're not that far from a restroom either, I feel we're incentivizing, encouraging the seniors to use this more. My wife has dragged me there a couple of times in the last year, and I've enjoyed it. But there's a couple of things I'd like to see too. So if we can connect this senior center to the rail trail, picture this now. We have a lower level, we have a patio with bike storage and so forth. And then we have a trail, our own trail, leading to the rail trail. And then when you get to the rail trail, there's an opportunity to create an area there where pavers and so forth with a couple of benches that could serve as a model, possibly further down, right? Further down the trail to incorporate additional benches and maybe some kiosks that talk about the history of the area. I think that the location encourages the seniors to use Somers Commons, as Richie said. And, from what we're hearing, the senior center that is owned by Putnam County, that's over in across from the diner on Route 6, there's a number of Somers seniors right now that are using the Putnam County center. So, we're excited about that. We feel it's going to be very, very well received, and it's going to focus on recreation. What can we do to get the seniors more active, get them involved, and get them out on that trail? As far as the townhomes themselves, well, Richie said age orientated. What we have found out with Hidden Meadow, which is doing very well, by the way, we only have a couple left, that the seniors, and I say seniors, 55 and older, the empty nesters, they do not want to live, most of them don't want to live in a community that's labeled senior housing. Now, I don't consider myself a senior. I am, but I don't consider myself one. And they want to be around some younger people. So we will not call this senior housing, but it will be age orientated. What we mean by that is, one, the design standards. We will have master bedrooms on the first floor, and we will have certain design features which the baby boomers and an aging population look for. In addition to that, one thing they're definitely looking for, where we lost some seniors up at Hidden Meadow, is the walkability. Okay, they want walkability and connect. They want to be connected to everything. And here, once we finish Reynolds Drive and put the sidewalk down Reynolds Drive, you're connected to everything. You're connected to the planned hamlet. You're connected to what we built across the street at Crossroads. We have Green's Market there. We have Bobo's, which is very popular, and all the way through Somers Commons shopping center. So we feel that it's going to be very, very attractive for the empty nesters who want to stay in Somers, and therefore they sell their homes, and their homes open up for the next generation to start their family. So we're excited about it. We're going to design it in that way. As far as the open space, I think that the property joining the rail trail is some of the best property, if not the best property, out of the 56 acres. It's very strategic. I've walked it. It's a former farm property. I encourage anybody to go up there. There's a whole road that runs around the entire property, and it's just it's outstanding. So I think that preservation, and as Richie said, Councilman Clinchy or Councilman Chirico, whoever asked the question, it will be under the control of the town. The vehicle in which you get that, either via environmental conservation easement or a deed, I'll leave to others, but it will be under the control of the town. You won't be able to build on that. But I do think that the 7 acres around the community center is something that the town can use, and down the road, 10, 15, 20, 25 years from now, I think it's a very strategic location. So we'll open it up to any questions you have.
Hey, could you talk about the number of bedrooms and homes and and maybe a rendition of what you're going to build?
Well, the homes, what we did at Hidden Meadow, Councilman, was we had 50-50. What we did is we had 50% 2 bedrooms and 50% 3 bedrooms. I think the mix here would be more for 2 bedrooms. We do have a call for some 3 bedrooms. Sean came up with a footprint. We can get you a design as this evolves. But, I think Hidden Meadow has been very well received. I think for the price point where we started in the high 5s for new construction in Somers, we put all of our upgraded features in it, and I think the buyers have appreciated it. And further to that, if you go into Hidden Meadow, you'll see that we continue to do more things that aren't on the plans. If you see the stone walls, those stone walls weren't originally on the plan. We had a tremendous amount of field stone on the property, and instead of trucking it out to somewhere, let's find places to make it work. And some of the homeowners who have moved in who said, gee, this is great. We didn't expect that. And, we kind of shrugged and said, our name is on this. So I can get you a plan, and we can we can design it in a way that there's more twos than threes, because that's really the market we're going for.
I mean, I'm just
I'm just gonna-
spitballing here a little bit, Ken. I mean,
Sure.
what about, the number, I guess. Well, I'm looking at it, parking. I mean, how do you, it's like,
Rich?
is there parking associated
Or
with
is that
this?
Yes.
something
I
with
mean, how-
garages?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Is
So I'll jump in just to answer that question. First, to answer Councilman Garrity's previous question, there's about 400 feet between the bike trail and the units.
Right.
So it's pretty considerable. Your MFR BP standards actually have a requirement for visitor parking. First of all, every unit will have its own driveway, every unit will have its own garage, but we do also have visitor parking scattered throughout in accordance with the code. Consistent with what we're doing at Hidden Meadow, we'll have a grouping of spaces throughout. We'll have spaces at the recreation center. We've purposely put them sporadically throughout the site to be a good mix for the residents. As Ken found when he was building Hidden Meadow, you have to build something people want to live in. And he did that. And, visitor parking is something that we're paying attention to.
Are those garages, are they 1 car, 2 car, or it depends upon whether it's a 2 or 3 bedroom unit?
I think it's similar to Hidden Meadow, Councilman, where it's really 1 car and then the driveway can hold another car. Okay. And then we have the visitor parking.
Now, there's one way in here I see on your driveway. Is that Reynolds driveway? Is that what it is? Reynolds. There's one way in. Was that a concern at all to provide another way out for emergency vehicles, etc.?
Great question. One of the things that exists is actually a wetland crossing and an old farm road. What we'd like to do is take opportunity to, one, make that a secondary emergency access in the event it's needed, but not build it as a paved structured road, have it as more of a gravel, natural feeling, farm type road, using what's already there, but make it suitable enough so if the fire department needs a second way around or a second way in, it exists. And this would be the main trail, the main pedestrian trail that we may possibly build other nature trails off of.
Rich, which way would that go? So
It would start here about midway through the development. It would use the existing wetland crossing that's here.
Yeah.
If you do visit the site, you'll find that this is actually an elevated fill section that goes right through the site with a culvert at the wetland. So we would make use of that, wrap it back through around the site and connect down into here.
Got it.
That would be open all the time, or you'd have to control that via a gate of some sort for an emergency?
I envisioned, we have some stormwater management that's going to be on the downhill side of the development. We're obviously going to fence that off for safety. I envisioned making some sort of gateway so that our residents knew when they were leaving the property, and also so the public knows that you're entering a private property. Be it a gate so that, one, nobody drives down it, but two, also just to create a buffer between us and the area that's open to the public.
Is that
On your
proposed?
Sorry.
I'm just going to, the proposed conservation easement, just trying to understand the condition there. Is that wetlands? Is it buildable, or is it just being declared as an easement?
So, before Richie jumps in, from a developer standpoint, Councilman, it's buildable.
Okay.
There is wetlands, as Richie said, there's wetlands down through the middle of the property. What's interesting is these wetlands were really self-created. Some of them were self-created. There was a spring at some point, and they actually built a dam, and they dammed the water up to feed the crops that they grew in there years ago. It's pretty neat. But this property in here, closest to the rail trail, is not wet, and it's not in the buffer area. You get down toward, Rich, bring the pointer down to the left. That's it right there. Down in there, it is. You wouldn't be able to build, but further up, it's really nice property.
Yeah, I was going to jump in and say, when Ken asked me to start studying this property, we had a substantially larger number of units proposed, recognizing that there was a lot of developable area on this side. It was actually Ken that pulled us back and said, there's a different concept we're going to go for here. We want to make sure that we're preserving along the bike trail, respecting preservation. He saw it as an opportunity to make sure that we protected these wetlands. So there are wetlands throughout the center of the site. They're in this darker green shade. And then, as Ken mentioned, there is, as you get down, the old spring that comes through. This is that dark green line in the middle.
Rich, the proposed town center or senior center that you have on there, that would have access to the bike path, right?
That's correct.
So as Ken was talking about, you're going to come in the road. You'll have a parking lot up front. We envision a drop-off, pull-off area. We haven't gotten into the level of detailing of any sidewalks yet, but obviously there'll be sidewalks connecting. But as Ken mentioned, the grade drops from this side of the building to this side. The easiest way to think about it is like a walkout basement or a walkout. So what we envision is a patio down in this area where you walk out, and then we would construct a trail that works with the slope and gets you down to the bike path.
Since that's a public building, that would be obviously, I know your design is for the people who live there, and that's a great thing. The more exercise older people get, all the research is the healthier they are and everybody's happier. But it would be available to everybody who would drive in there. It's a public building, and anyone going down the bike trail would say, hey, I need a bathroom. There's one there. Let's go.
Well, that's a good point. I thought that we would put some type of gate at the bottom. When I say gate, it's more of a visual deterrent than having, a gate code or something. And I think, with the signage, people realize that it's not for it's not for the public. I don't see people going into the center, coming up Reynolds Drive and going into the center unless they have a purpose to be there and a resident of Somers.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to ultimately control it. It would be another one that would go under, I would imagine, the, Parks Department. And,
Parks Department, yeah.
Yeah, with Barbara and Steve working on it. We talked about something the other day, and we were talking about, what if something happened to Van Tassel at some point, because what we know now is one of the things that we do hear Barbara say is they have those exercises classes, and there's not always enough room for everybody in that one big room they have over there, because that really is an old house. Whereas this, you're working with Ken, we probably have a little bit more say in how it's built. So from an exercise room standpoint, more seniors could come here, but we'd also have an extra kitchen should something happen to the one over at Van Tassel. So
how'd you guys come up with the size for the community center, right? I mean, now you have all those surrounding areas, right? You're opening it up to the public. How did you come up with the size for the place? Is 3,500 square foot? Is that is ample amount of space for an entire town? Or so how did we come to that decision for 3,500 square foot?
I think that determination is fluid and flexible. If the town, obviously, there's going to be a lot of coordination and input with various town agencies, the least of which is Ms. Tabor, who does a great job over there. So that's fluid, and if necessary, we can increase it. If necessary, the design can change. For example, what we did is, supervisor, on the second floor, there's 500 square feet on the second floor, because most of it is really lofts and offices. And we figured that would not be used too much for the seniors, but rather for, Ms. Tabor and her staff or other town staff. But we could change the design and put up a full second story. We could expand the footprint of the building as well. So we'll await feedback from the town, and we'll adjust accordingly.
Either
The
way,
concept is
either
you need
way,
programming and
the
staff up
Reese
there.
Park is, or rather the Van Tassel. I mean, what is that? What's that? 1,000 square feet, if any, if that? So it's definitely bigger than any senior center we have now. They used to use one of the fire departments, but it would definitely be I mean, in my opinion, it would be bigger at the moment. And I have heard, Ken, but like what you said, Ken, I have heard that people from our town try and sneak into the one on the other side of Route 6 in Mayapack.
Yeah,
They don't card them, so they all are able to get in and use that one.
And Tom, they would wish you'd stop doing it too, I must say.
Yeah, I know. Well, not there yet, Rich, almost.
Well, Councilman Shariko?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Supervisor, was there an answer in there?
There was an answer.
Thank you. I have a tendency to,
And just to touch on something Councilman Clinchie commented on, we thought the trail was an important part to the community center and integrating the two. As Ken said, we're here to work with the town. This connection point can slide potentially down on the trail to create more separation if you think it needs to be a little farther away from the community center. There's options and ways to still integrate them, connect them, and create that separation if that's where the town likes to go.
Well, it's one of those things too, where we control a lot of other buildings that aren't necessarily open 24/7. Van Tassel's locked when it's not in use. And so this is a senior / community center that, seniors can use during the day, I would imagine. And then we could open it up to possibly park, right now, like, for instance, we've had trouble with the schools because of COVID. But this might be something where Steve might be able to run some programs after school that we don't have to depend on using one of the school facilities for. I mean, that's what I was thinking when I saw
Well, now
it.
you're getting into safety and maybe, uninterrupted power generation up there to use it for a safety center.
Yeah.
Have a generator up there.
Yeah,
and we thought about that as well because, Councilman, if you recall, the real bad storms, I guess back in, 13 and 14, we lost power in the Muse. What's funny is the Muse 1 and Muse 2 are next door to each other, but they're on different circuits. And we lost power for a week or so in Muse 1. And we had seniors who were over at your emergency shelter. A generator in our complexes only serve the common areas, right? They don't serve the apartments per se. So some seniors do prefer to go to a center. So I would agree with you. A good sized generator as part of the design here would be great.
Talk about, I guess, what are you thinking for septic, sewer, what?
Sure. Well,
Water.
As Rich said, that this is two separate parcels. The parcel closest to Somers Commons is just under 20 acres. It's 19.8, and that's on the county water and sewer district map. It appears there was a piece of it that was included back from when the Planned Hamlet got in. So the county has that in their water and sewer district map. Now, the lower piece, the 36.9 acres, is not. There would have to be a coordination and cooperation from the county. And the presentation would be such that the upper piece, the 20-acre piece, the majority of that, we've given away, if you will, for both the conservation easement, the community center, and the 7 acres around the community center for a significant community benefit. And the significant community benefit that would be very convenient to the town's majority of moderate and low-income seniors, right? That the county has supported our developments, and I believe the county would welcome this type of community development. And so my sense is that, and based on preliminary discussions, that including the lower piece, the 36.9 acres, into the water and sewer district due to what we're doing with the upper district, basically giving that up, we believe it'll be very well received by the county.
So it would be, you're hoping it would go into the county septic that goes along Route 6 and into Peekskill, but no problem tying into the water district up there, and that's already existing. Is that about what your plan is?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And as Rich said, Reynolds Drive was not blacktopped. It's got a item 4, so we'd have to run the sewer and the water up Reynolds Drive.
Right. And there's how many units altogether? I'm trying to count your little squares there, but
79.
79. Are they attached?
79.
Are they attached?
Mixture of,
Some are. Yes, yes. They're attached, but they're in smaller, some are 4 rows of 4, some are rows of 3s. At Hidden Meadow, we had rows of 5 and 6s. Here, you even have a couple rows of 2s if you look at them. But that's the typical townhouse style.
Why, why is 79 the number?
Well, because we didn't want to go for 99, because Rich has another slide that we didn't want to show you tonight, okay? That had 99.
I was thinking of something
I'm
less.
being serious.
No,
But what we thought was this, Councilman. We laid this out, and there is an alternate design where, with the similar design and having the same open space, you would be able to fit an additional, I think, 18 or so. It got us up to about 98. But, this site would hold much more than the 79. We felt that the 98, we pulled back from that, and we feel that this is a very reasonable number for 56 acres.
and those are 2-story, the master bedroom's on the bottom, at least that's your design.
2-story,
No
2-story.
basement, 2-story,
no basement.
upstairs, a bedroom or 2 master bedroom.
Yes.
downstairs.
Yes.
Bathroom.
Have you, Councilman, have you gone into Hidden Meadow lately?
Have I?
Yeah.
No, I was waiting for an invitation.
Well, anytime. My son is there every weekend, but with the grade of Hidden Meadow, the first 4 buildings on the right, actually have steps leading up to them. Right now, buildings 5, 6, and 7 don't have steps, and those buildings went as soon as we opened them up. They went very, very fast, because even the steps on the outside were a deterrent to the empty nesters. And what we're finding is there are some young families, but the majority of the purchasers today are the empty nesters who are they're either looking to stay in Somers, or some have moved to Somers to be closer to their children and grandchildren. So these would all be these would not have steps. These would be on one grade level.
Right.
Ken, 2 questions. One, and I'm sure I asked you this previously. They're condos or fee simple?
Counselor, at Hidden Meadow, we are fee simple. As a developer, we would love condo. I think the town would enjoy fee simple. The tax structure is higher for the town. So we will yield. But I think that we can do the same structure that we did at Hidden Meadow, which was an actual subdivision in fee simple. But if for some reason the town decided condo be better, I would agree with you.
No. But fee simple definitely serves the town better.
So I have found out.
Yeah.
Roland, you see any issues? I mean,
well, we didn't discuss an affordable component. Is this one of the zones where that 15% otherwise applies?
Yes, it does. That's a great question. The current plan does not show or does not indicate, affordable units. We can modify this to, accommodate that. However, the mindset is this: if the town viewed the senior/community center as such a community benefit that that the community benefit also, as I mentioned previously, primarily would benefit the moderate and low-income senior population of the town, then, and if the town were to waive that, I think those same parameters would be discussed, with the county as well. We are not using any county, state, or federal money here. So, that's the current plan, and so I think it ties into the community benefit of the senior/community center, and see what flexibility that provides, and the fact that the community center is located in that area where most of the moderate and affordable senior units are in town. But again, we will yield to the town, and we will adjust accordingly.
So really looking at the MFR zone, and having done this with Hidden Meadow, the first couple of steps for us are one, to get the feedback and from the town board. The next step per the MFR BP zone would be to do a referral to the planning board and the open space committee. Last time when we started with Hidden Meadow, we also started talking about seeker with the town board and deciding who would want to be lead agency, would be a town board or planning board. With Hidden Meadow, it was the planning board. And we also need to talk to you about establishing an application fee and an escrow, because I'm sure you're going to want your consultants to begin reviewing what we submit.
Well, I'd like to hear, I'd like to hear from Barbara what she thinks again, because and maybe even Steve Ralston about the proposed community center. See if they're excited about it. I like all the screening. I walk that path a lot because I'm over on this side of town, and Rich is 100% right. It goes sort of uphill. So my idea is that you won't be able to see it from the bike path, or the houses across from the bike path, and Stop and Shop will block it from that direction. So as Tony was saying, over on the, I'll just say the top of this, I'm not going to go east, west, north, or south, but the top of it, that's a pretty far distance from there to the street. Now somebody does own that area, so I'm sure we'll get some feedback from them as well. But I don't recall any feedback from them when the Artist Memory Center went up, which is probably even more, they could see more from their property, or even Avalon. So.
Yeah, I like to see something though, just as far as with the sewers, right? Just so if you go into you go into the county, right, and you get the approval there, I'd like to just see something here, if that's possible.
Yeah, Supervisor, what we've, with all of our projects in the past, the last 4 projects, they were quite complex, right? And the last piece was always the water and sewer connection. The code itself read that it can be on land located within the public and water sewer. If land is if it's not presently within such district, the establishment of the zone district shall be contingent upon the creation or expansion of the district. So I guess what I'm suggesting, if possible, if it's acceptable, this will be our 5th project in the town of Somers. And this, believe it or not, is probably the less complicated or convoluted, even in regards to getting into the water and sewer district. So, the code indicates that the adoption of the code can be contingent upon that if there is basically, and Counselor, correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm interpreting this, because I've been told by Charles Montalbano I have a tendency to do that. So that if there is a path, there, so we are willing to go at risk and advance at our own risk and our own money, because the main reason is because of my experience. This is our fourth project. We had to, for the Musa Baldwin Place, we worked with the county to get the entire planned hamlet in. Hidden Meadow was its own application. Crossroads at Baldwin Place was a very different approach, where we actually ran the sewer down from the county line over to right past Mayapack Farm. So based on my experience, I'm highly confident that this is going to occur. And I would respectfully request that we be able to continue to move forward at our own risk, knowing, of course, that if it doesn't come together, then there is no project. But and I think that's consistent with the way the code is written.
I mean, I agree with what Kenny's saying. You've seen it before where you progress your application. It takes a considerable amount of time. We will assume the risk and you'll make it contingent on our ability to connect. And that's really the way you've done the other projects. And that's the way we want to proceed with this project.
Right. Do you know, Ken or Charlie, the front piece, well, the northerly section that you believe is already on a county map, is that the boundaries the same for the local water and sewer district?
That's a great question.
Parcel not in the local district?
Yeah, it's Roland. What I believe happened is that there's a small part of that upper piece, the 19 point something acres that was in it. And it's
in which? In the county district or in the local district?
In the county district.
Okay.
All these, Roland, there's going to be amendments to both as we go forward. Yep. And I think though that the fact that the county has it listed, the upper piece in the water and sewer district, is very advantageous. It is. It's advantageous to us as we move forward, and it's advantageous as I stated previously. Our ask is that we are giving up the majority of that upper piece for a community benefit. So I agree, the boundaries have to be redefined, if you will, and but it is a tremendous benefit and starting point that a part of it is in, and that has triggered the county to have it in the water and sewer district.
Yeah, my only concern is it's odd to me, since the county action follows from the town action, and it's the town that's the petitioner. How did the county enlarge the boundaries larger than what the local district did? I mean, are we dealing with just a mapping error?
Yeah, I wouldn't call it an error, Counselor. I would call it. Sorry, I wouldn't call it an error now. I would say that it was a. I'm not sure what happened. We can look at it and say we agree that a small piece of the upper portion is in it, and that is what triggered the mapping, and so that all has to be that is all going to have to be redrawn. So you're correct. Will the town maps and the county maps reconcile at some point? Yes, they have to.
Yes.
They have
Yes.
to, of course. And in order for that to happen, the bigger piece has to happen, which is the lower portion. If the lower portion
Right.
doesn't get in, we don't have a project, correct?
Right.
We don't. So we're in agreement.
Yep. And it may be that when we look at what the local district did, maybe we did petition for more than we thought. It's possible too.
We may have, and I think that, and I'll end it again this way. I believe that this request will be well received, and I think that the county will be very supportive if the town is. The town is in regards to the creation of this public benefit to include a senior/community center.
Right.
Will there be traffic challenges that you're going to have to deal with here?
Councilman, as you come down, well, first of all, the targeted population, the fact that it's age oriented, is a decreased traffic flow. As I mentioned earlier, they're looking more for connectivity, but there will be traffic. And what I think here, though, you have the added benefit of it gets dispersed, right? Because as you come down, you can go to the left, you can come down to the light across from Crossroads, you can go to the right, and go to the right over there, or you can go out to Route 118. What's interesting is we do have an easement. These properties have an easement along the side of Erstap Biddle's property. It was back with Big V shopping centers, and when Somers Realty, Mr. Capozza owned everything at the time. There's some kind of easement there. And I don't think it's necessary for us to talk about that tonight, but the fact is that people will use that direction either around the back or and out to 118. So I see the traffic getting dispersed over a couple different points, as opposed to just one entry, one ingress and egress.
And I want to build on a couple of your points there. Obviously, we'll have to provide all the necessary traffic studies as we move through seeker. In the initial traffic count, when we fill out the EAF, we don't even rise to the level per the EAF workbook that DEC hands to all of us to evaluate traffic, where this would generate enough peak vehicle hour trips to qualify for a significant adverse impact. That's not me saying that. That's DEC establishing a standard of 190 townhome units as being what creates a significant impact. But I also want to just remind everybody, the planned hamlet had a bunch of uses that were put in abeyance through the years, or kind of just put on hold in the form of restaurants, retail. And I'm just talking about this, looking at traffic as a whole in the area, that likely are never going to happen, because the only property left is here, this lot 4, this commercial piece. You recently saw an application, I think, before the board, or request on behalf of Tractor Supply. So there were all these uses that were contemplated in the planned hamlet's traffic study that are likely never going to come to fruition, which have already been studied at these intersections and already been evaluated for level of service. So we're confident from a traffic standpoint that we'll be able to provide the studies during seeker and show that we won't have an impact.
Right. So with your blessing, we respectfully request that we're able to, at our own risk, move forward, work with Ms. Tabor, Mr. Ralston, or any member of any agency in town for the design of the senior center and senior/community center, and start the process, establish the escrow, knowing that we're at our own risk. And but as I stated previously, this will be our 5th project. Hard to believe. 5th project. in Somers, but I think this one has less complications to it than the other four. And that includes the access to Westchester County's water and sewer districts.
Roland, just by way of process, do they need our permission to have those conversations?
To go to the county?
Yeah, and
Well-
Barbara Tabor and
Well, they're your employees, so to that extent, yes, they should have your permission to do that.
okay.
So I would just say.
This
Ken, I
is
would
just a
say
work
this.
session tonight, so you're not going to declare lead agency. That's going to take, I think, a conversation with your planning board
Yeah.
to figure out which board is better suited to be the lead agency for the environmental review.
Okay.
This is.
I don't know, has the town's planner seen this plan?
Did have an initial meeting with town staff, I believe, several months
Okay.
ago.
Yeah, back in October.
And again,
Right, I recall that. So,
and as-
when you formally get a petition and you have then referred it to your planning board and to the county planning board, then you'll also I think you will have decided which board is going to be the lead agency. And it can move from there. But certainly the applicant can have preliminary discussions with town staff if you allow it.
And Ron, just to
So I
add,
was going to say here, so just give me a day or two to kind of talk to the staff and see where they're at. I'd rather have it come from me than someone calling them on the phone and asking them questions. So I'd rather take the lead and talk to them a little bit first to see where they're at. So you'll know that about me. I like to just handle that myself, and then I'll have a conversation with the board here, and I'll have a conversation with Roland and all everybody to see what direction we'll go, and then we'll get back to you guys on that.
Okay.
Rich, did you say you'd met with David Smith already? Is that true?
yeah, I think we had a sit down several months ago, Ken, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it was late October, Councilman. It was the first step.
Wasn't it a Zoom?
It was a Zoom
Yes.
meeting.
Yeah,
That's
it was a
correct.
Zoom meeting.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
we
he
had
was
town
wonderful.
engineer, town planner.
Yes.
How close are you to formally submitting?
So with respect to that, the code requires that we submit a written letter report outlining certain things, which our letter did. So we believe, and Charlie, correct me if I'm wrong, that through our letter report, we met the intent of the code as far as a submission. And procedurally, the next step under the MFRBP would really be for this board to refer it to the
Correct.
planning board and open space committee.
Correct. To those two agencies, that's correct.
Okay. Well, when the board is ready to do that, it can put your letter back on the regular meeting agenda.
Okay.
Did you submit an EAF as well?
We did.
Okay.
So we're not given permission to move forward at this point. We're just
Yeah, I
listening.
think the supervisor wants to talk to staff first.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Thank you. It's been a long night for you. So I thank you for getting us on the agenda and your time tonight. And we look forward to hearing back from you and working with you again. All right.
Appreciate your time, guys.
Thanks,
Thanks
Ken.
Very much.
You do good. You do good work.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Woo. All right. So let's head to number 5 here. New limits on the veterans exemption adopted by Westchester County for discussion. I'd like to move this to next week and then schedule a public hearing. Roland, do we need to draft a proposal for local law on that?
Excuse me, I was still taking notes from the other subject. What was the question?
So for number 5 on the here, right? So new limits on the veterans exemption adopted by the Westchester County. It's for
Oh, yes,
discussion here.
I need to draft a local law.
Yeah, I'd like to move that to next week and then schedule a public hearing.
Okay, and I'll get you the law by then.
Okay, that'd be great. So, okay. The motion, I don't have the motion, I do it. It's late now. No, okay. Rob Russell's up here for the Bureau of Fire Prevention, proposed changes to chapter 158 of Somers Town Code, Vehicle and Traffic. Rob, you've been on for a while. I mean, do you want to say a few things in this?
No, I mean, I think it's pretty straightforward. Originally when this was drafted out, they named out shopping centers, which, having grown up in the town and, been a part of the town for over 45 years now, I didn't recognize some of the names. And I think it's much better practice moving forward to identify them by parcels. Speaking for most of the members in the fire department, which is I shouldn't do, but we will always refer to Coral Seafood as the old Pinocchios.
Yeah, me too.
That's just, we know things by what they were known as opposed to what they are currently known as. So I think identifying by parcel numbers would be a much better system for moving forward. Additionally, there's been a lot of new buildings built, like Chico's, for example, which are not included in that section of the code, which references fire lanes. I almost wonder if we're better off doing a schedule like we do for signs and setbacks of the fire lanes and zones in the town. And this all came about because the fire district had asked us to try and enforce some of the fire zones and fire lanes throughout the town. And we had noticed that some of the signs still contain the old verbiage of no parking, fire lane, but the current verbiage that the Bureau of Fire Prevention had adopted several years back was to say no parking or standing. Because we've run into the problem a lot where people pull up, leave their car in the fire lane running, or with somebody in the passenger seat, go in, do their shopping, do whatever. Fire apparatus would pull up and the vehicle's not able to be moved out of the lane, and it causes an issue, especially on ambulance calls. We can at that point call the police department to come and issue tickets or try and get it moved, but tickets are always like the last line of enforcement. We'd much rather just have it be clear, no parking or standing, have the correct signs up, have the zebra stripes in the fire lanes, have the curbs painted, and have all that laid out in the code, because the issue we run into when trying to enforce these things is that if they're not included in the section of code that lists all the fire lanes and fire zones, it's not a legitimate ticket. Just because somebody puts up a sign that says it's a fire lane or fire zone, if it's not listed in the code, same thing with the speed zones, where the certain roads are less than the state speed limit. If it's not limited, it's not legally enforceable. So we were just hoping the town board, because this is kind of beyond our purview, could adjust the code to include all the fire lanes and fire zones with the no parking or standing language, and have that updated.
Rob, can I just ask you, that makes sense to me. No parking, no standing, but stopping would be okay, because there are the three things in the traffic code of parking, standing, or stopping. Stopping is okay, but no standing or parking.
Yes, correct. I'm going to defer to Chief Mackey real quick, but I believe that is our intention, right? No parking or standing, but.
Yeah, no, that's correct. And Rob did a great job summarizing that. I just want to hit on a couple points on this. This has become in recent years more of an issue, especially in the Heritage Hills Shopping Center. I can think of off the top of my head about 4 or 5 instances in recent months where we've responded to emergencies in that shopping center, and that fire lane in front of Fratelli's Bobo's area has been full of cars. Mm-hmm. And even gotten attitudes from people about moving their cars from the fire lane. Really? Yeah. Yeah. So, that kind of, spurred this discussion. And I know the Bureau's been doing an excellent job trying to meet with Chief Linkletter to get more enforcement on that. And that's kind of where we came to this roadblock where, it's not, those areas aren't clear in the town code. So enforcement is tough on that.
And then the only other thing I would suggest or request is when you look at chapter 158, 158.10, the no parking areas, fire lanes, fire hydrants, And I don't want to suggest legal terms and codes, but something to the effect of including, there's language in there in the moment about within 15 feet of any fire hydrant. I would just say if we could also include something to the effect of the parking or standing of any vehicles hereby prohibited in any area designated as parking, as no parking areas or a fire lane, and in front of or within 15 feet of any firehouse, apparatus driveway, or fire hydrant in the town of Somers. If we could include the extra verbiage about firehouse, apparatus driveway. So across from Granite Springs Firehouse, for example, which is over by the Old Tomahawk Street, that area in front of the firehouse, we actually had that specific section designated a no parking area because of the turning radius out of the firehouse. If we could just include general language in the code about not parking within 15 feet of a firehouse driveway, obviously Route 202 where the Somers house is or Lincolndale house is, it's not an issue. There is specific language in the code about the area in front of Amawalk, but I think general language about that mirrors a fire hydrant language should down the road we decide to build another firehouse or relocate a firehouse. We don't have to go back and do a code change for that specific building. It's just, if it's a firehouse, a fire apparatus driveway, just like a fire hydrant, 15 feet on the other side, no parking to allow for turning in and out of the apparatus space.
Okay,
And signage would be installed to that effect?
well, Roland, let me just ask a question. Mr. Russell has sent us, or the Fire Prevention Bureau has sent us a code amendment that they want. And now you want extras added to that. Are you going to send that to me so that I can notice the local law appropriately, or do you want Roland to look at something?
No, I mean, I can definitely, at our next meeting, the Fire Prevention Bureau, again, I'm just in preparing for tonight's meeting, and I was going through and looking at the language, I realized that we had designated Amawalk specifically and Granite Springs and not the other firehouses, so I thought it was best just to include a general language about all firehouses. But I can bring that back. I don't think it's fair for me to speak on the Bureau without having discussed it with Chief Tuma and Chief Mackey. But I can certainly take that back, amend that memo to you and resend it.
Are any of these firehouses on state roads?
So, Lincolndale
So
Firehouse,
then you need the
139.
state to establish the no parking.
Well,
because we wouldn't be able to put up no parking signs on state roads.
Just before, not to complicate Rob's request, his additional request does come specifically from the Granite Springs Firehouse. We had a lot of issues with the restaurants, limited parking, and cars were parking in front of the firehouse. At that firehouse, we have our ladder truck, which is very long. It needs a wide turn. That is designated as no parking now. Once again, enforcement of that is tough. I'm not sure if that's on the original list, Rob. I know you know better on the current
Excuse
list,
me.
or is that?
Can I just interrupt again? I'm sorry. That was done by a code amendment itself.
Mhm.
That was done 2 years ago by a code amendment
right.
where there was no parking in front of the restaurant, so on and so forth. That was a code amendment that we did 2 years ago.
So they're not supposed to be parking there, but they are.
So it's
That's-
it's an enforcement thing, right? It's an enforcement issue.
I understand what you guys are saying, and I understand your struggle, but we tried to address that as a town.
But like Tony says, that's an enforcement issue at the moment. Just not being enforced. Okay.
I'm again, it's just wanted.
I mean,
to know it was
geez,
done.
yeah, open up Pandora's box. So I'm sure we have some areas where there's enforcement issues.
Right. This is
Or
more
we're
about
being,
the
we're
code.
forgiving, I guess I would say that. What?
Yeah, this is more about if we're going to make an amendment to section 158, that we should be as comprehensive as possible, so we don't have to keep requesting amendments to the code as we move forward. Roland, as far as the ones that are on state roads, you might know better, but I don't believe you're allowed to park anywhere on a state road, period. Route 139, Route 202. I don't believe they allow for parking on the state roads. So this would only really come into effect on the town roads.
But you're asking for no parking within 15 feet of an access way for a driveway, for a firehouse
Correct.
driveway. We can't post that on a state road.
I think
So
that
how
would
would
be
people
preceded by
know?
the fact that you can't park on a state road in general.
Yeah, I don't think that's true. That you can, I think you can park on state roads unless it's posted otherwise.
Well, I could certainly look into the vehicle and traffic law. I know from my limited time as a police officer, there's sections of the VTNL that refer to parked on pavement that address that situation. But I will certainly go back and research it further before your meeting next week.
But understand, I'm not saying it can't be done. I'm just saying that part of the restriction has to be done by the state, by DOT.
Right.
So and usually the police chief is the one who takes that to DOT and gets that done. So it is doable. It's just not the town doing it.
Understood.
Okay.
Yeah, guys, listen, I think we should just pick this up next week. You know, we'll put it back on the on it for next week, right? So we talk a little bit about it. Rob, if there's something else that you wanted to add there or what now, let's get everything in order first before we start. This title and just make it tight here for us. So I think we should just pick this up again next week. And then we can go from there. Right, because I know you're trying to add something here to add a few more things. And I think we need to just do a little bit of research and kind of figure out where we're at, that we can pick
All
this
right.
up.
I mean, otherwise, if the only sticking point is the firehouse driveways, then I would say just move forward with it is. And if that becomes an issue and we build another firehouse down the road, we'll address it then.
All right. So if that's the case, Rob, so start changing anything. So let's move this to next week, Patty, and then we'll schedule a public hearing. Okay. All right, guys. Appreciate Rob.
Patty, you'll have to send me what you have so I can draft the local law. Okay.
Okay.
In their vein, they're very awesome and they drafted all for us. So I'll just send that to you. Rob's very good at that. Rob Russell.
Even better.
Yeah, exactly.
Rob's
They send us the whole code change, blah, blah, blah.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
It's all good.
Rob,
Great,
John, thanks, man, so much for taking
Thanks,
time.
guys.
All
Good
right.
luck tonight, Rob.
Very much for your time.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thanks for all the volunteer work, guys.
Thank you.
And Rob,
Have a good night.
are you headed down to the EOC tonight?
I am. Am I going to be talking to you in 2 hours?
No, you're gonna have somebody else. I'm gonna be there tomorrow.
All right. I'll see you in the morning then.
All right, take it easy.
All right, here we let's move this right along. Number 7, authorize supervisors to sign the following. A, the renewal contract for the town's dental insurance with Guardian for the period of April 1st, 2022 through May 31st, 2023. Per referral from Robert Kehoe, Director of Finance. Move that to the consensus agenda for next week. And then B, the intermunicipal agreement between the Westchester County Department of Public Safety Service and the town of Somers for the use of the firing range located at the county's police academy in Valhalla, commencing on January 1st, 2022 and terminating on July 31st, 2025. Again, let's move that to the consensus agenda for next week, Patty. C here, the maintenance and access agreements for the final subdivision plat of a property prepared for the estate of Barbara S. Whitman in the town of Somers. I'd like to make a motion to adopt the maintenance and access agreement. Anybody want to second that?
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
So moved. And then number 8, so number 8 here, move the April 14th, 2022 regular meeting to April 21st, 2022 for Holy Thursday. A motion to adopt.
Motion to move the meeting.
Is that the reason? Is that the reason because it is?
It's Holy Thursday. So.
Motion to move the meeting in April.
And the first night of Passover.
First night of Passover as well.
All right.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in
But I don't
favor?
want to.
Aye.
Aye. It's like, oh my God.
D, Parks and Recreation, no additional business. E, Financial, no additional business. F, Highway, no additional business as well. We have some personnel. We have some current vacancies. Partners in Prevention, a 2-3-year term ending 12/31/2022. And then again, for Partners in Prevention, a 2-3-year terms ending 12/31/2023. And then we also have a Zoning Board of Appeals, 1 5-year term ending 12/31/2023.
And I've said this before, Rob, you know, a lot of times we reappoint the people who are in there. But in this case, for the zoning board, it is an open position. Somebody left. So if there's people who are interested, we're interviewing if you want to send something to the supervisor's office.
Yep. Yeah, we could.
How long do we have to keep that open for in the town? Is it 60 days, something like that? We have to notice it when there's an opening.
I didn't know there was any limit.
Yeah, I didn't know if there was.
There is something in there that we have to put it out for a certain number of days that there's an opening, I believe.
But it's open until it's filled.
Don't we have to notice it for a while though? That people want to do it, they have the ability to access. I thought I read that in one of our
I think
things.
you're 100% correct. I think it's for 2 months, but then
Oh, okay.
that's when it's an upcoming vacancy that's already filled. And we might be reappointing the sitting person.
Yeah.
You might have the opportunity to interview somebody who may be better qualified.
Right.
But then if it's not being interviewed for, it stays there until it's filled.
Right.
But in
it
this
has to be at
case,
least 60
the
days,
2
my point.
months would take effect.
Yeah. That's what I'm
sorry.
saying.
All I
Yeah.
saw was, I'm like, no, it stays until it's filled.
Okay. Number 2, upcoming vacancies for term expiring 2022, Park and Recreation Board, 2 3-year terms ending 3/9/2022.
Have we heard back from either of those members indicating if they want to be reappointed or no?
I have not, no.
Okay.
Number 3, acknowledge the resignation of Miss Ellen Deavy as a member of the Somers Affordable Housing Board effective January 13th, 2022. Number 4. Say again, Rich?
Yeah.
I'm just saying with appreciation for what
Yes.
she, nice lady.
And then number 4, acknowledge that Deputy Supervisor Rick Morrissey is declining his monetary payment of $1,080 for performing his duties as Deputy Supervisor per his email dated on January 20th, 2022. H, Planning and Engineering, no additional business. Police, no additional business for I. Proposed consensus agenda. 1, authorize the secure a professional services fee refund per January 7th, 2022 memo from David B. Smith, Consulting Director of Planning. A, $322.58. 11 Ada Road lot line change, TM 27.05-1-17. And 2, accept low bids for 2022 highway materials with the exception of mileage deviations from all categories picked up FOB by trucks furnished by the town of Somers per December 14th, 2021 memo from Nicholas DeVito, Superintendent of Highways. Anybody else have anything to add? It's been a long night.
Well, we're gonna get some weather tonight, so everybody be safe, right?
Yeah, gonna get some ice and followed up by some snow.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's so I mean, probably the kids will be happy about that, right? So,
Yeah, but
maybe
the
not-
parents
maybe
getting
not.
woken up at 5 o'clock in the morning won't be.
You get a phone
Exactly.
call.
You get a phone call. Some schools have already closed. Somers is not one of them.
Oh, is that?
We'll get the phone call at 5. Yeah.
I'll do what I did last time. I'll sleep through the call and my daughter will get up and fully ready to go out and get the bus, and then we'll tell her that school's over.
That's perfect. That's perfect.
Just moving, Brenna.
Anybody have anything else? Well, if not, I just want to say, it was,
How about that girl on the front page of the paper, though, got that in that research, used to be the Intel research, and it's now got a different name. I forget. That is so prestigious.
that was from the last week, right? That was the girl from last week?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty impressive.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, you know, there was that article about those mussels that they found in the reservoir that's kind of floating there.
I did see that.
Right? They're clogging all the pipes and stuff. I mean, it's probably something to be thought about.
Yeah.
I'll think
It's
about
more
that one,
work for
Anthony.
everybody. What?
Thank you.
Rich, you're gonna think about that?
I am. Anthony has sparked my curiosity on these.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we're gonna have to get those pipes unclogged.
Well, it's an invasive species. That's true.
I think we need to get our guys on it. All right.
So motion to close February 3rd, 2022 work session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good night, guys.
Gentlemen.